What's up, hotheads and political junkies? You're watching Cannabis Culture News Live. I'm Jeremiah Vandermeer, editor of Cannabis Culture, and I just turned off the microphone. There it is. So, we're chilling here with Corey, and we got Chris on the couch now. Look at that. He's actually in the cam.
He is.
Looks good.
He's actually...
And we got a little bit of a different background today. The old Christmas tree behind us.
All right.
Yeah.
Does the mic work?
The mic does work. It should.
Oh.
Yeah, I'd have to put a little closer to you. This one has some distance on it. These guys got to go right up to you. You can take it out of there like that, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Mr. Chris Bennett, cannabis historian on the couch, and amazing activist Corey Tripsy. And we're going to smoke some of this amazing weed that I have. But
oh, please.
Yeah, we're going to talk about all of this stuff. I'm just trying to log in the chat. It's not working. But today on the show, it's a big one today. We're going to talk about what's going on in Washington, D.C. And I don't know if anybody is paying attention to what's happening down there. Up here in Canada, I surely am. I don't know about this lounge, but I bet Chris has probably been watching. Corey has. Washington, D.C. is in a big battle right now between Democrats and Republicans over Initiative 71 and a funding bill that was put forward by the Republicans that includes language that they thought was going to ban Initiative 71 or try and stop the implementation of it by stopping the funding of it. Now, it turns out that the language that the Republicans used to do this isn't really the right language, and they screwed up. And apparently that means that it still will go forward. Now, nobody knows exactly what's going to happen because it's in this weird limbo right now where the Attorney General of Washington, D.C. hasn't made a decision and told us exactly how the law will be interpreted. So we still could have legalization. If they follow what the law says, then we will have legalization because basically all the legal analysts who have looked at it have said, oh no, the Republicans fucked up. They thought they were trying to stop the funding of it, but they didn't actually because it's already been enacted. So it hasn't been put into effect, but the actual thing has already been enacted. So hold on a second, I'm going to log into the chat here.
You got to see what the chatters are doing.
Yeah. Yes. There we go. Yeah.
There we are. Hi,
All right,
Dr. Clone. Hi.
So hopefully you guys can see and hear us out there okay. I'll bring up my mixer here for a second. Oh, why doesn't it like it? Here. You guys should be able to hear us, and that's probably even a little better now. How's that, guys? So, you want a bong toke. Now, I want to show this off first. Hold on here. We have the cam. Cut to the bud cam. Whoop. Bud cam. So this is the OG times G13 2, it says. So check this bud out here. This is a nice looking bud. Oh, looks pretty good. And look at this. Manicam can let us zoom in here. Like, bam. Oh, that's nice looking stuff. We probably should have a light on it, but. So this is the OG G13. We're going to try this first of all, but smell this stuff. Okay, this one is amazing, but the other ones, now these were given to us by Dirty Dave, downtown Dirty Dave, who's a
very dank
wick grower. Yeah, this stuff's really nice. And he gave us a whole bunch of these bags over here. I'm going to show them off. But this one's pretty awesome. We should try that first, and then we'll show off some of the other ones here. Let's get Duchess in on this. So Chris Bennett hasn't been on the show for a while. What's new in your universe, Chris? What's happening?
Oh, I'm always doing stuff, I guess. I was finishing up a chapter for Stephen Gray, who was on the last time I was on for his book on cannabis spirituality. I'm doing a chapter on cannabis and religion for that. Working on various video projects. Been trying to get a movie off the ground, but that's tough. You get that kind of money. I'm working with Oliver Hull, who made Neurons to Nirvana, a pretty good film. I don't know what's going to happen with that, whether that'll happen or not. And just about to start working on a video on cannabis in ancient Greece with some interview footage I shot with Professor Carl Ruck and David Hillman a couple years back.
Oh, nice.
Wow.
And so cannabis in ancient Greece, can you give us any little hint as to what...
Yeah, well, according to these guys in there, Hillman's a PhD and wrote a book about drugs in ancient Greece and Rome and stuff.
The Chemical Muse?
The Chemical Muse, and
Yeah.
you can check him out in my video on Mithras and marijuana. And he says that cannabis was used by the cult of Aphrodite quite prevalently, that the temple there was always filled with smoke, was used by ancient Greek oracle sites, for inducing the oracular state, which was often, the inhaling of fumes combined with the banging of drums and cymbals and music and creating kind of a musical vibe, and then people would prophesize in kind of a sing-song kind of voice. It's kind of similar to the way rap music is produced now. People get a beat and then they start kind of rolling with it,
Nice.
And
they'd get high and freestyle, you mean?
Yeah. And then Orpheus, a well-known Greek god, his cult particularly, they had the kapnobatai, a Greek term that means those who walk in smoke, and they kind of hotboxed in a similar way to the Scythians did, So
nice.
There's quite a few references there in ancient Greece that people aren't aware of.
Yeah, well, that's very cool. And so you're working on one that you've filmed before. So when is this due to hit the airwaves?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, probably a month or something like
nice.
that. I've got a little bit of editing to do and stuff
Nice.
like that. Who knows how long these things take?
Yes,
I don't try not to set deadlines anymore.
I know. I'm trying to put you on the spot so you crack the whip and... Yeah, so that's an episode of Burning Shiva. You're a long-running Pod TV show, which is totally awesome. People can find that on Pod TV. I believe if you just type Chris Bennett into our search function, you'll find lots of videos. By Chris.
Yeah, for sure. Chris Bennett marijuana, maybe to nail it down on YouTube or something.
Definitely. Yeah,
That's
and
tasty.
how was that? Yeah, Chris. You want
See
one?
Libby Davies. I'm okay on the bong. I see Libby Davies jumping out of the election race.
I'm
there.
glad you brought that up because that's actually one of the other things we're going to talk about on the show today. We actually have Mark Elyas of the Liberal Party, one of Jodie's campaign directors, coming on the show to talk about it as well. And yes, it's absolutely true. Libby Davies, who is the long-time MP for the riding of Vancouver East, just over to our left here, has resigned this morning. She says she's not in the running to actually go. So it's crazy that Jodie, of course, if anybody's watching this show knows, Jodie Emery is a hopeful for the MP spot in Vancouver East for the Liberal Party. She has to win the nomination within the party first. But if she was to win that nomination, then that would mean that she would have to contest somebody other than Libby Davies now. So that would be very interesting. Who knows who the NDP will put up, but...
It's funny because Libby about a week ago had, the thing about Canada and Canadian politics, the difference about American politics is many of these politicians have Facebook accounts and you can approach them quite readily and communicate, with politicians on a much easier scale than you can in the U.S. And Libby was posting stuff about the NDP's new thing where they say, we want to have another discussion about cannabis, another inquiry, and people, en masse. I don't think there was anybody that was supporting that idea was going enough already. We've had 3 major inquiries here in Canada, the Ledane and the House of Commons and the Liberal one, and now is the time for implementation, and that's what people want. And she tried to defend the position, but really seemed to, people are pretty educated out there. There's a lot of these medical marijuana people are very, very in tune with the history of cannabis law and whatnot, and people weren't buying it. And I think it was disheartening because that has been such a source of support for federally, that issue, and she can see that Mulcair has really taken it a step backwards in a big way. He's talking about his policies are like, no jail for 2 joints and that type of thing. Which isn't much different than the conservative position, really.
Totally. No, it's a sad thing that Mulcair is kind of dominated with his unscientific views, a party that at one time seemed to be the one who was on the forefront of this issue.
Jack Layton was on Pot TV, you know what I mean, and did a Pot TV commercial, and said cafes and stores and things like that for marijuana, so it's so far from that,
Oh, yeah.
The thing about Tom Mulcair is he's the best conservative leader the NDP's ever had.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow, well
we're
said.
talking, the guy started as a Lib, tried to get a cabinet position in Harper's government, and got rejected on that, and then took over the NDP, and it's unfortunate, because the NDP was the party I voted for the last 3 decades.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I was a member of the NDP since I could vote, but not anymore. And now, of course, Justin, I think, is kind of obviously doing the right thing on marijuana by wanting to fully legalize it. And now, hopefully, he does the right thing and allows Jodie to have a fair nomination process in the riding. See, that's the problem so far, in my opinion, with the Liberals. I'm a Liberal member, and I support the Liberal Party, but I don't really like all of the things they do, just like any political
I vote
party.
on issues. Not, I'll be voting Liberal this time, but it's like I'm not a party member.
No, but, I like supporting the party, and I wanted to become a member to help support them. But I don't like necessarily that they've been subverting all of the races in certain ridings. Like, I understand that that's probably has to be done in some places. But it seems like they're doing a lot of picking of Justin's buddies instead of allowing the democratic process to sort of run itself out in the riding associations where they actually select the candidates, and that's how it should be. I mean, you should have a fair process where you allow people to choose the person they want from within the party, not just the guys who run the whole entire party decide every single thing about the party.
Absolutely.
So, hopefully these guys will do the right thing and allow us to have a fair nomination process. In Vancouver East, we do have some competition now. So Jodie has at least 2 people, 3 people running against her now. There's Mark. We're right on topic here. Right on topic. Right on time and right on topic. Yeah, so there's a fellow named Edward Wong. Edward Wong is one of the people who would be contesting Jodie. He has thrown his hat in the ring,
on camera?
I guess. You are on camera.
I'm on mic too.
Yeah, exactly.
Are we like
You're all good.
worldwide?
We're live.
Hello, world.
Mark Elyas.
World
Chris,
Wide Web.
You want a bong rip?
You
One of
betcha.
these ones? You sure? What about one of the smaller bong?
I'm okay. I'm more of a joint person.
Oh, well, I'll roll a joint too. Okay. He's got dry sips
Well,
over there.
before-
Johnny B's in the house.
How are you guys doing?
Very good, my
Very
friend.
good.
Doing great.
I'm
Interested
awesome.
to hear this news about the Libby situation.
Well, let's talk about last night first, and then we can
okay,
go into the
we
Libby.
we already started talking. I just wanted to say the other 2 people. It was Edward Wong. What's the
Joanne Griffiths.
Joanne Griff? What was that?
Griffiths.
Griffith.
Yeah, she's Arthur Griffiths' first wife.
Yeah.
He used to own the Vancouver Canucks. She is a very wealthy West Vancouver lady who's pretty active in East Van, to say the least, though. She does run a foundation that helps feed less fortunate kids.
Oh, yeah.
A backpack program. So she is actually...
I don't like her already.
Oh, you don't? Okay. She is actually a very nice lady. I've had an opportunity to meet with her, with Jodie, actually.
Right.
Very nice lady, but if I have... she is not the best candidate for East Vancouver.
No,
I mean,
of course.
she'd
Jodie's
be
the
an
best
amazing candidate in other ridings. I just don't feel that the electorate in East Van can relate to her. And she is not really representative of them. She does represent a different class, a different kind of society than the East Vancouver rights. Edward Wong is a trial lawyer who has the backing of former Liberal cabinet minister Raymond Chan from Richmond. So he does have strong support. He has support from the co-chair as well, the campaign co-chair. So the cards are kind of stacked against Jodie that way. But Jodie also has a lot of supporters in East Vancouver who have signed up memberships. So the real race is actually going to be between Jodie Emery and Edward Wong. It's going to be a tight one. It'll probably go to the second ballot, but I believe that we can win it in the first. But you never know what these guys have up their sleeves. So the real urgent thing that needs to be done is we need to make sure that residents in East Vancouver who are 14 years old and older, and they just have to be a resident. They don't have to be a Canadian citizen, but they need to go online right now to liberal.ca and spend $10 on a membership. This way they can have the right to vote for Jodie at the nomination contest, and this way she'll win the nomination contest and then become
that's right.
the Liberal candidate and then future Liberal MP.
I heard that Chris Bennett wasn't a member of the party.
Yeah. You should. And you know what? I have...
I've been given
Cool. I actually
Well, you
have
might as well be a
membership
member then.
forms in my truck, so when the show is over here, you can still
We
sign
just need
up
you to
too.
vote. That's the thing. That's we
Yeah,
need your
but
voting
yeah,
power.
You live in East.
What about you, Johnny?
We'll get you
Where do you
signed
live?
up.
I live in the Fraser Valley.
Nah.
Hey, you know what? You can sign
I live
up.
in Burnaby, that's no
And,
That's close enough.
Does Burnaby work?
Burnaby also
Yeah.
works in Burnaby, but not for voting in this election.
Darn.
But you should sign up. Are you a member? You should sign up if you're not.
You should sign up,
And anybody
Corey.
watching the
Okay,
show
I have to
who
make sure whether or not I am.
lives
okay?
in East Vancouver, my
You're
goodness,
probably
please sign
not.
up.
I smoked a lot of pot, so maybe I am.
I don't
Maybe
think you
probably
are.
Not.
No, I would have remembered signing you up.
All right then.
I would have seen your name. I actually get to look at all the membership forms, get them photocopied, make sure that they're filled out right, make sure that the
knows for
postal
sure
codes are
I'm
on
not.
there, making sure telephone and phone numbers and emails are on there. And that's the thing, you know. I did not see your name.
No.
No.
Happy
So,
I've
420.
got to sign up.
Happy
I think it's
420,
after
everybody.
420.
No, it's 4:20 on the dot according
Oh,
to
it
my
is?
clock. And let's. I have this amazing bud of Romulan times
Wow,
blueberry.
All one bud.
Let's take a look
All
at
one
this on
bud,
the
that's
bud
amazing.
cam. Bud cam.
All right, but those who are at home who live in East Van, you do not have permission to light up a doobie or light your bong or whatever you guys do out there
away from the
until
bong.
you go to liberal.ca and get your membership, because that is,
away.
it's all about that. If you don't get a membership and you live in East Van and Jodie Emery loses the nomination battle, all right, it is your fault. You don't have the right to complain. You don't have the right to complain to anybody.
And you know you have the right to
And
complain.
I'm putting it right on you, okay? If you live in East Van, go online right now and get yourself a membership. And then you know what would be nice? If you found me on Facebook, it's Mark Elyas, Elyas. Send me a personal message letting me know that you got a membership. And this way I can put you on our contact list to make sure you know when the nomination date is, because I have a feeling that, you know, those in the party won't let you know if they know that you're a Jodie Emery supporter. There's tricks. Everybody, it's politics. We saw it in the last election. The Conservatives this time didn't get away with what they normally do, but it's all old news. So don't be surprised if there's dirty tricks out there, because dirty tricks is the name of the game. It's unfortunate,
Not
but it's
for-
true.
not
But
for
if
our
you
campaign,
it's
though.
not for our campaign. Absolutely not. Actually, the thing is,
Clean
if we
tricks.
played dirty, we'd get kicked off the campaign right off the bat. Jodie would have gotten red lit, because you know what? All eyes are on us. They're looking for any mistake, any bending of the rules, let alone breaking of the rules. So that's the truth. I mean, at the end of the day, we have to be clear, open, honest, and transparent about what we're doing. But our opponent doesn't. Okay? So there you go. You can already see the unfairness in it, but that also highlights the importance of you going online right now to liberal.ca. Get a membership. It'll only take you 2 minutes. You just need a credit card, and it's easy. I think you can even do it by PayPal, or am I? I'm not sure. I think you can
do it by anything.
By anything, yeah. You need like Visa, MasterCard, American Express. I even think they take Discover.
Wooden coins.
Bitcoin's coming soon.
Bitcoins.
All right, I
Yeah,
promise. When I become a later on in the year and later on in 2015, I am running for the presidency of the Liberal Party of Canada in British Columbia.
I've heard this.
And one of the things that I am going to introduce is Bitcoin, so people can actually use Bitcoins to donate and pay for their memberships, with a number of other things I'd like to do to change the party to make it a better place. Are we going to talk about Libby Davies at all, like resigning?
Yeah.
Or, well, she's not resigning, but she's not running in the next election.
So she's giving up her, she's not resigning, but that's fantastic in a way for, I mean, obviously, I love Libby Davies so much. I think she's one of the greatest politicians out there. I know that you don't, but I actually think that she was probably the greatest politician in the country.
No, Jodie Emery is the greatest politician in the country. Well, Justin Trudeau is the greatest politician in the country. Politician. Justin Trudeau.
I like Justin, but Libby Davies to me has done a lot for our movement. She's done a lot for progressive politics in this country and has basically been, as far as I can see, nearly dead on about just nearly almost every issue. The ones that she hasn't been muzzled on, and she has been muzzled, unfortunately, by her party. Her views on Israel, for instance, were heavily, basically put under lock and key, and nobody in the NDP is allowed to actually give their honest opinion about things, apparently, anymore. So I think maybe, I'm not sure, I don't know why Libby decided not to run again. She's been there for a long time.
I know why. Well, there's two reasons. She keeps getting her the reason number one, and we should start a new hashtag. And reason number one is because of muzzling Mulcair. Thomas Mulcair is not a Democrat. He does not like it when people do not share his opinions on anything. And that includes his deputy leaders, you know. Yeah. So muzzling Mulcair, hashtag muzzling Mulcair, right? The other reason is, I mean, you know, Libby is not ignorant to the polls, all right? We've done a number of polls, seeing what people, how people feel about Jodie Emery being a Liberal candidate in Vancouver East, all right? And we actually slightly beat Libby Davies.
In what poll?
The polls that we do when we're out there talking to people, we actually do our own surveys in the ridings,
I'm not sure that's a scientific poll.
Well, it's a very it's scientific because, you know, when you go and you measure, you talk to 2,000 people, for instance, okay, in the riding in varying spots throughout the riding, okay? Yeah. And they're asked a simple question: would you vote for Jodie Emery as the Liberal candidate or Libby Davies as the NDP candidate? And our numbers are showing that Jodie gets 41% of the vote, while Libby Davies gets 36% of the vote. So those are our numbers. The NDP do their own polling as well. Libby has seen those numbers, I'm sure. I'm sure her numbers are just as similar as ours. Wow. So at the end of the day, I mean, Libby Davies wants to leave on a high note, not losing in an election to a pro-liberal legalization activist.
That could be.
That would be embarrassing for her. So I understand the decision, you know.
See, I think we're jumping the gun a bit here, though, because Jodie still has to win the nomination.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's, you know,
that's well, we need to make it happen.
If the liberal brass will actually allow something like that to happen.
You know, especially it's up to the members. Really, at the end of the day, okay, it's not up to you or I or the liberal brass.
Well, it's up to Justin, actually.
It's not even up to him, because what it boils down to is the members. All right.
Well,
it's
but wait a second.
Up to the members.
There's a few examples that I think I can bring up where there were members who had voted. There were a lot of members that people were bringing in, and that didn't necessarily matter.
Yeah.
Justin kind of made the decision for the other person.
We saw the fallout with that earlier on. In
Bong rip, anybody? Everybody's afraid of Duchess? I'll hit her then.
While Jeremiah is taking a hit of that, I'll just explain. I mean,
fill us in here.
I'll fill you in. What happened in Vancouver South actually made headlines, national headlines, okay, right across the country. So it's in my belief that the brass learn from those mistakes. They understand that they cannot interfere and hinder potential candidates' nomination races.
But
they did do it. But I don't think they're going to do it again
they've
because
done it a few times.
Well, you know, the thing is Jodie Emery has somebody who would not be very quiet about that, and that's her husband, Mark. All right,
that's
and Mark knows how to make a headline,
that's true.
I don't think the party would want that headline. Okay, they don't want to be told that. I mean, how's that going to look?
Well,
all right, Raymond Chan's guy.
Well, we want Justin to win no matter what happens.
Yes.
So I think that no matter what happens, hopefully, no matter what happens, we'll have to accept things gracefully. I don't want to, bash Justin too hard on this thing. I understand that the leader of the party has to make certain decisions and stuff. I, of course, want Jodie to be the candidate. I mean, it would be ridiculous if he tried to stop her. She'll be the most popular candidate. I mean, she's the right choice for Vancouver East across the board. So
something from Burnaby would really work. It would me signing up I could actually help her get.
Well, it just shows the party that you are supporting. You've gotten a membership in support of Jodie Emery, even though you can't vote for her at the nomination meeting. And we've been signing up people all over the country.
It'll be
not
noted
just.
that?
Oh, it'll be noted because they get it in the Jodie Emery.
I think I got a card with me with $10 on it, so we can.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Dr.
no problem.
Clone in the chat wants to know if he could sit back behind us on the show during just every week on the show, I guess. Well, I don't know. We'd have to figure out, see how it looks, but I don't see why not. Dr. Clone. Jeez, it's hard enough to get him on the couch when he's down here. Yeah.
See, I just want to point out what happened this week in Vancouver South, the news article that came out. That had nothing to do with Justin Trudeau. Yes, Justin Trudeau had a favorite out of the two candidates, okay? But he did not instruct anybody. He would not do that.
What?
He didn't instruct anybody to...
He's the leader.
Yeah, but you know what?
No.
It's not him that makes these decisions. It's the co-chair. It's the campaign co-chair.
I think Justin makes he can make any decision. The leader has a veto of everything. Always.
All right, yes, but he's not going to micromanage every single riding.
So the co-chair probably was like, this is our
This is our guy, yes. Yeah. I actually know the story.
But still...
I spoke to the other candidate.
I think that's speculation, really. I mean, who knows?
No, it's not speculation.
Justin might have been unless do you have evidence of that?
I do have evidence of that. Oh, of course. No, I've actually, I got it from the horse's mouth himself. I had a conversation. No, not from Justin, but from Barge
How many horses
DeHaan.
are there?
He was the other nomination aspirant that was going to run in today's nomination, actually, in Vancouver South. He signed up 4,000 members in Vancouver South and another 1,500 in Vancouver Granville. So he signed up 5,500 members, while his opponent only signed up 1,000.
Wow.
Trudeau preferred his opponent, okay, but he wasn't going. He didn't personally interfere.
So that's the guy they cut. So even if we
it was
signed up
the BC co-chair. He was just.
We could sign up 5,000, and if they didn't like us, they'd still be like, whoosh.
They could try, but I think our members are going to be.
So do we have to impress the co-chair then instead of Justin, or who do we have to impress?
The game plan.
You know what? We have to impress the people. All right? Really, it's all about the power of numbers.
More than 5,000 of them then.
If we sign up 5,000 people, I don't think, I like how you're,
I don't know.
trying to twist
I'm being a journalist here. I'm not.
I know.
I'm wearing a different hat. It's my show.
You are the campaign director of Jodie Emery's campaign.
I know, but I have nothing but the most faith in Jodie and all of her abilities to.
I'm in journalism as well. All right.
I'm being honest.
I am the deputy chief editor of Canada's most read Aboriginal publication.
I know you are, actually.
And you know what? When I do my writing, it's
so you have an inside source, you're saying, but you just outed him.
I did out him, but he's had the same conversation with a number of people.
Oh yeah, sure, or whatever. That one's fine. You like this one?
Long story short,
if you
the campaign co-chair
with you, brother.
pushed hard for his resignation from the campaign with threats. All right. He won't say that publicly, but he's been saying it privately to a number of people that he was threatened. All right. He was told that, you know, he was going to be banned for life from running for the Liberal Party.
Well, that doesn't sound very nice.
No, it doesn't sound very nice at all. All right.
Geez, who are these dicks running the party?
Well, it's only here in BC. It's the guy's name is Bruce Young, the co-chair for the campaign co-chair. He's actually in BC. We have not had, huh?
Aren't we supposed to be nice to him?
Oh, not anymore.
No.
Well, you can be. I'm nice to everybody, but I'm going to tell the truth. Okay, in BC. Unlike Ontario, unlike all the other provinces, even though there were issues in other ridings and other provinces, in BC so far, okay, by tomorrow there will be 16 candidates that have been, 16 or 17 candidates that have been selected in BC. Not one of them has been in an open, fair, unhindered nomination. All right?
And so have there been any?
Not one.
So that's not looking good for our campaign then.
Well,
I mean, unless Jodie's the choice.
Well, I'm calling him out on it right now. Hey, we are going to have an open, fair nomination. At this point, it isn't unhindered. Okay, they have stacked the cards against us. Bruce Young has picked his favorite. He's helping his favorite out. We have to jump through hoops to get membership forms. The other guy doesn't. Okay, so I mean, like,
well,
right
do we know
there.
that for sure yet? Though?
Yes.
I have a very important question.
I don't say anything unless I know the information is true.
Okay. I'm with you.
Very important question. Is this the same as the first two?
No, this is actually the Romulan. No, sorry, this is the. Let me tell you what this is.
To know these things.
This is the third bud I showed, which is Bruce Banner 3 times Chemdog times Fire OG.
Wow. Wow.
So
the first two were the same, right?
Sure.
What are you going to do about the Kinder Morgan pipeline? Will that project carry on as it is, and all these environmental changes that the Conservatives have put in place in regarding the lakes and waters in between here and Alberta? What's going to happen with that?
I'll vote to shut it down.
Well, I am not the leader of the Liberal Party, so I cannot give a definitive answer on that. But, okay, I am friends with many, many, many Liberals in British Columbia, and we all share your sentiment, okay? We do not want heavy diluted bitumen to be transported anywhere throughout BC, all right? And especially going on to container ships, those oil tankers, those ships. I mean, here's the problem. Diluted bitumen, we'll call it dilbit for short, okay, is really heavy. If there is
good on potato chips.
An oil spill with diluted bitumen, let's say one of these tankers causes a spill, the diluted bitumen, the dilbit, will be impossible to clean. Because unlike oil, okay, this will actually sink right to the bottom of the ocean, and it will be impossible to clean.
Yeah.
So what needs to happen? I mean, I'm not going to say here, hey, we've got to stop exporting our oil, all right, and we can't diversify our markets because there are, like, markets that want our product, and oil is a big part of our economy. But we need to open up our minds and decide, okay, how are we going to do this? There is a company called Pacific Future Energy. Yes, hemp, but I mean, you know, it'll still, I know. But there is a company out there by the name of Pacific Future Energy. They want to work with First Nations in partnership with them. And what they want to do is they want to make sure that dilbit does not go into our waters. So they want to refine the bitumen into gasoline and diesel, put those on the tankers, If there is a spill, and there will likely be a spill, okay? Like, that's the reality. Accidents do happen. There will be, absolutely.
Yeah, there
but
are
if there's a
spills all the
spill
time.
with gasoline and diesel, which floats, it makes it a lot easier to clean up, and the stuff that you cannot clean will actually evaporate in the air. I go boating quite a bit in the summertime. I've seen so many people have accidents with their gasoline, spilling it. Not a big deal because the gasoline just floats on the top and it evaporates. Go pour some gas on the concrete. It will evaporate.
Right.
All right. So it's
Right.
not, it,
There's
it
still
does.
some- there's still something left over,
There's
but-
still some, but it's not as nearly as
No.
damaging.
Right.
I mean, we're talking about, that dilbit, we can rate it at 100. Gasoline and diesel will be less than 1.
I'd still, I think that we should try and move on to other kinds
Absolutely.
of resources that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I guess, Trudeau Sr., he talked about a national energy program, and I think that's like something that I'd really like to see Justin take a look at. Right now, Canada imports half the oil that we use and exports 2/3 of what we produce. So all of that going off of the coastline here, that's all for the benefit of corporations and in relation to who gets to sell what where. It has nothing to do with what's good for Canadian or Canadian jobs. And it's all about corporate profits, and the idea of processing it here makes sense for sure. I agree with that. But the situation for the for Canada's best needs would be no importation of oil until Canadian sources are depleted, and no exportation of oil until Canadian needs are met. And that way we'd avoid an Exxon Valdez as well as the potential pipeline bursts and stuff like that.
Yeah, that makes
I am 100% in agreement with you. And you know what's cool about Canada? We have the second largest oil reserves in the world. So we can refine our own products for our own use, and we'll still have plenty for export. The problem is these corporations are, in fact, are too greedy. They don't care about First Nations land rights and titles, okay? They don't care about the environment. They don't care about the ocean. All they care about is the bottom line. It actually costs, it's more profitable, believe it or not, for these oil companies to export the raw bitumen, the diluted dilbit, than to refine it and export it at a higher price, because a refined product obviously costs more. So it's more profitable for them to send it overseas. But we as Canadians, we have a duty to get to the polls, vote in the right government that would make sure that we do have a national energy program. The cool thing is we actually have the provinces working separately from the federal government, from Stephen Harper's government. They're talking and negotiating a national energy plan, surprisingly led by Jim Prentice, the Premier of Alberta. So let's see what comes out of that as well. I mean, we'll hear their discussions. The cool thing about having all the different premiers involved in this is the premiers definitely represent different parties, different political views, different values. But they can, on occasion, on numerous occasions under this Harper government, they've all banded together in opposition of Harper, even the conservative premiers. I mean, we have had all 13 premiers in the country demand for a national inquiry on the missing and murdered Aboriginal women. What does the federal government do? They basically say, fuck you, all right? They don't care about Native people. They never have. It's so obvious, you know? I was at the Aboriginal Friendship Center the other day signing up members with Jodie, and speaking to First Nations people. They have no love for the Harper government because you know what? They see the Harper government as a racist colonial entity, and they don't want a part of it. And in fact, they've signed up, they've gotten memberships, they're joining the Aboriginal People's Commission in the Liberal Party because they feel that the Liberal Party is the right vehicle for them to raise their issues, bring their issues forward, and it's a right vehicle for the Liberal Party to adopt native-friendly policies. But let's get back to Libby Davies. I mean, I'm so excited about that.
My Trans Am.
Mine's a GMC Yukon, black G-Ride.
Yeah. Russ is in the house.
Russ Miller.
Russ. And so that was a good tangent we went off on there.
Oh,
good
yeah.
Liberal tangent. But yeah, so of course, Libby, that's an interesting thing. You out of here, Chris? Thanks for coming on the show.
See you later.
Man.
Hey,
Chris.
That was awesome.
Chris, don't go yet. You got to get a membership.
Yeah.
I'll give Russ my truck key.
Yeah, I'll get
Okay.
you one for sure. I'll come see it.
Make sure. Don't
Chris
forget.
Bennett,
Yeah, he's like downstairs now.
Oh, yeah.
cannabis
Then I'll
historian,
come see you downstairs. Yeah, I'll get you.
former Pot TV manager, actually.
Hey,
Chris.
Oh, Russ should.
Russ doesn't want to.
Doesn't want. He's too handsome for the cam today.
I know.
Yeah, that's right. He's got too many buttons undone on his shirt. We don't allow that kind of pornography on the show.
Oh, you're so
We might
full
get
of
banned
it.
from live stream for that. Yeah.
Speaking of which, I just found that missing episode, you know.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. I
Which
have a
missing
full
episode?
Copy. Marijuana show before
Oh,
it became
you
TMZ.
recorded it?
Yeah.
No way,
I've got
nice.
it. I
Oh.
totally got it. The one
We
with
should-
the...
we should re-air
what's his
it.
name, Voodoo? Oh,
Yeah.
you can't re-air it. You'd
Live
have to heavily
penetration
edit
on
it to
air?
re-air
Yeah,
that.
probably not.
You'd have to heavily
Probably
re-edit
the
or
best
edit
stay
that.
away from that.
Well,
but
not heavily,
Not
but-
that I'm against that, really, but I wouldn't mind watching it myself. But
Of course you wouldn't.
yeah, remember when
the
gas
missing
was sold
episode.
per gallon, says Canadian Giant. Yeah, there's lots of changes going on in the whole oil industry, I guess, these days. So, but Johnny B is also here, and he's got like a stack of.
Oh
He's
my
got
God,
brought his
I've been-
Tupperware containers.
I don't know if anybody saw my eyes get like huge.
What's
a
in
minute
that
ago,
stack
but-
there, John?
Oh my God.
What is that? Dry sift? It's all in like little envelopes. Is it envelopes? Envelopes? Envelopes. So you brought it all in like kitchenware. Yeah, it looks like peanut brittle. Can I have a bite?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Dry sift in parchment paper. Can you show it off to the dry sift cam? Can be here just the unit itself. We don't have to crack it open or anything. I'll just hold it and put it here in front of the cam. Dry sift cam. Oh, so you can see it there. It's like, but you can't really see it. Here, hold on.
He's going to the little.
There we go. Here. Yeah. Da-na-na-na-na. Oh, where is it? Here. There's the side you want to see.
Yeah.
Those are all full of dry sift. Hmm? Nice. It's all in wax paper. All right, and we're back. We should be back. And we're back. Looks like it froze for a little bit there, and now we're
Did we
back.
talk about last night's event,
Hold on a
Liberal
second.
Women's in Politics?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you about next.
Oh.
We all got together at the Waldorf Hotel last night, which was a very cool venue that we were at. Oh, here, let's go back to that. I'm just cutting into
You had the most epic, and you were busy focused on
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, bring that back over here. There we go.
So the best part
Okay, we just got to show off Johnny's hash, and then we'll talk about last night
is
at the
hash.
Waldorf.
You see how nice that is?
Okay, here, hold on. Let me
Yeah.
get you on cam here. Cut. Ah, look at the powder.
But what's the best thing about
That's
this?
amazing.
Oh,
Whoa.
it's stuck to it.
Oh my God, it's defying gravity.
Oh,
So you can literally.
you could sneeze on it and it would be fine. There you go. Wow. Cool.
That's awesome.
Solid.
He's right, it's epic.
That is pretty cool.
That is pretty cool.
So,
And that's powder.
what did they call that, John?
Fresh headies.
Fresh. What kind of headies?
What alcohol guys?
Well, yeah, they're full male fresh headies, but from what plant?
Number 5.
Number 5.
No, I didn't get to attend last night. So what was last night like?
It was awesome.
Let's allow Mark to describe.
All right. Well, what had happened yesterday, okay, was there was an event at the Waldorf Hotel at Norris Table. Beautiful Italian food. Lovely. The food was awesome. Anyways, the event was to highlight 3 of the Liberal Party's aspiring nomination candidates who want to be Liberal MPs. We had Wendy Ewan from Delta East Richmond Steveston, I think is the name of the new riding. Yeah, Richmond East Steveston is the new name of the new riding.
Mouthful.
Oh, there you go.
All right, mouthful. I've known Wendy for years, and honestly, she's like amazing. She's a great woman. She runs an awesome international trading company. She's the owner of it. And it's a very successful company. She was recruited by Paul Martin, actually, several years ago, 2 elections ago, to run for us in Vancouver Kingsway. Because Paul Martin knows that she's exceptional. And what's really cool about Wendy is she does not need to go into politics, okay? She's doing it to serve Canadians. Because you know what? She would have a much better life outside of politics. It would be more profitable for her. Her home life would be a lot better. I mean, like, she's married and she has a kid. I'm sure they'd want to spend some time with her, but she is out there every day politicking, signing up members to win this nomination. And then she's going to go and run, and I've seen her campaign twice before in Vancouver Kingsway. And she is one of the hardest working politicians I've ever seen. And again, she doesn't need to do this. The other person that was there is actually a nomination candidate for Vancouver Kingsway, Mary Pinenberg. She is the president of the Liberal Party of Canada's Women Commission. She's been an incredible force for women's issues in the Liberal Party. She's worked hard to recruit women candidates all across Canada, and everybody keeps asking her, hey, why don't you run again? She ran in 2004 and lost by only 300 votes, actually. So she's even an exceptional politician.
That Medtainer's Liberal Orange.
Sorry, that was 2006.
Liberal Orange.
That's NDP, but you know, we should just
we call it Liberal Orange.
Yeah,
there you go.
Because she's going to be needing this in her retirement.
Aww.
But,
Aww.
and then there was Jodie Emery. We all know who Jodie is, and these 3 exceptional women had the opportunity to speak about their experience running as a candidate and the issues they face as women, as being women candidates. The turnout was exceptional. A lot of people were there. A lot of supporters for all 3 of the candidates.
You could open it.
And we want to send all 3 of those women, along with the 4 women we already have, with Joyce Murray, Dr. Hetty Fry, who we all know in Canada. There's also Jodie Wilson-Raygould. She's the Assembly of First Nations Regional Chief for BC. She's an exceptional First Nations woman. Then there's Pam Goldsmith-Jones, the former mayor of West Vancouver. So we already have 4-star candidates, like all-stars, probably the best women in politics in the country, okay, running. And you know what? We can add 3 more. We can add Wendy Ewan, we can add Mary Pinenberg, and we can add Jodie Emery. And they're equally as star-studded as the first 4 ladies that I spoke with about. So can you imagine if we sent those 7 women to Ottawa I mean, Vancouver would be like we'd have like it would. I don't even have words for it. All right, as you can see, I am overwhelmed at that thought, at that prospect of having these 7 women be our candidates. I mean, hard liberal. I am like a liberal who's pro-legalization, not a pro-legalization activist who's pro-liberal like Jodie. I'm a pro-legalization liberal activist. So I think I mixed up the words. So when I see like the potential of who we could send to Ottawa, all 7 of these women can not only influence the vote in their ridings, and they'll win their ridings if they're given the chance. The 4 will win. If Wendy Ewan is the candidate in Richmond, Mary the candidate in Kingsway, and Jodie the candidate in East, I can guarantee that all 3 of those women will be going to Parliament as well. And if we send those 7 women, I mean, I don't know what else to say. Like, we are the most awesome city in the world. That's what that will mean. That'll tell the rest of Canada that we've got the best women candidates. I'm sorry, you know, Carolyn Bennett is great. Same with Kirsty Duncan. Those Ontario women are great. But you know what? Our BC women are even more studded than they are. And to have 7 of them, we are blessed, the Liberal Party. Like, so blessed. And they will influence the vote all across Canada. They all have their different ways. I mean, Mary's great for women's issues. She will get the women to come out and vote. Jodie will get young people to come out and vote. I'm talking about nationally, not just in their ridings. Wendy will bring business professional women and people, not just women, but business people who are like, they'll vote for her. A number of different kinds of people would vote for Wendy, and she can influence those votes. New immigrants, because, you know, Wendy came to Canada with only $50 in her pocket. Now she's a multi-millionaire.
I really liked her, actually. I thought she was one of the best speakers at the whole event, and she...
Absolutely.
All her stories were these very sort of personal stories that it wasn't just a bunch of bullshit.
No.
It was like she actually was speaking from the heart and talking about things that actually mattered and stuff. So I like hearing that. It's kind of rare, actually, when I think about politics in general. And all the speakers last night had that sort of element to them. It's kind of like there seems to be... I like this new Justin Liberal Party where there's this more of a focus on actual... It's not as rhetorical.
Exactly.
I mean, there is some rhetoric and all of it. But like
these women were not rhetorical
last night,
at all.
There was a lot of substance.
Absolutely. And that's what makes me so excited about these women, because they're real. They're not going to like kowtow to or for anybody. You know, I can already see disagreements happening in caucus, and these women will be heard. They're not going to be like backbench MPs who are just there to just be there for a paycheck. Oh, I have to go to Ottawa and just do these meetings and that meeting and whatever. No, these ladies, all 7 of them, all right, bring something valuable that's definitely like been lacking in Parliament, and that's called opinion. All right, okay, and they will be bringing their own opinions, sharing them. They will be heard. I would love to see, I don't think Justin Trudeau could tell Hetty Fry, hey, I don't want to hear what you have to say. He can't do that to Joyce Murray. He won't be able to do that to Jodie Emery or Jody Wilson-Raybould. He can't do that to these women. And he does need strong women to be on his team, because women make politics better, in my opinion. You know, like, I'm tired of, no offense to the white guys, but I'm tired of old white guys, you know, making decisions for my country. You know, sorry, old white guy.
Takes offense to that.
But yeah, no, I want to see strong women. Women
white.
are really important.
Yeah,
and more color. You know, we need to bring in some black guys in Toronto. All right, to start running. I'm serious too. If you're a black guy in Toronto and you're thinking about running for the Liberal Party, Go and do it. Hit me up, Mark Elyas on Facebook, Elyas.
that
I'll hook
racial
you up.
profiling?
I'm from Toronto. That's why I
sounds
always
like
wear my
racial
Blue Jays
profiling.
hat. You know, I'll hook you up with people who will back you up.
I don't.
All right.
Just seems wrong. When we
Oh, and speaking of
celebrate
Toronto, tomorrow there's actually, I'd like to give a shout out to one of my good friends who's running in the nomination there.
Who's that?
His name is Sharif Sabawi. He's another Egyptian guy, Coptic Christian guy, just like me.
Yeah.
I'm Egyptian. Yeah. I'm born here and he's born there. This guy came to Canada like 20 years ago with $20 in his pocket. Now he's an IT professor at one of the big colleges in Toronto. He's a major community activist in Mississauga, Erin Mills. And this guy, I hope he wins the nomination tomorrow. It looks like he will. This guy will not only win Erin Mills because he brings 5,000 voters who would have not voted Liberal to vote for him, and he'll also influence the other Mississauga ridings. So I do hope that the Liberal members in Erin Mills, pick the right guy and vote for my friend Sharif Sabawi. He's a great activist. He understands international affairs and foreign policy. That's his big specialty. That's what he would be bringing to Parliament, especially Middle Eastern issues. And guess what? If you haven't watched the news lately, the Middle East is still fucked. So we need guys like him in Parliament to talk to the Prime Minister to say, hey, Prime Minister Trudeau, again, he'll listen to his caucus, he'll listen to this guy. We need this guy in Parliament so Prime Minister Justin Trudeau will have some good information before he makes his decisions, because we're liberals. We like evidence before we make up our policy decisions. We are never driven by ideology, ever.
Not like
the
Stephen
NDP
Harper.
and Stephen Harper, yeah.
Sadly, the NDP has gone that way with Mulcair in charge. But
well, you know what?
Science-based as well.
Tom Mulcair is just as bad as Stephen Harper. He muzzles his MPs.
Well, I don't know about that.
He is. He does exactly what Harper does. Look, if you pay attention, you'll see. Yeah, he does everything Harper does. He muzzles his MPs. Nobody's free to speak. He's very ideologically driven. He's always making backroom deals. I mean, you know what he's doing? He went to Europe and talked to the socialists in Europe,
still not everything.
telling the Europeans that the European socialists, that they should be worried about the free trade deal that Europe is trying to have with Canada.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, he's not saying anything like that to Canadians at all. In fact, he's like, free trade is good. Free trade is good if it's done properly and if it's like a fair deal, if it's fair on all sides. I don't think it will be because Harper is the prime minister, so you know him in fairness ain't going to work. But he's not, Mulcair isn't raising those concerns with Canadians. So why is he raising it with people who are not his constituents? He's raising it to foreign socialists, all right? Like, if he wants Canada to be the USSR, sure, all right? But Canada's never going to be the USSR. He's going to come in third place in the next election. He's definitely not a Democrat like Jack Layton. And you know what?
Maybe Harper will come in third place in the next election.
That would be, honestly, it makes no difference to me.
He's up in the polls now, but watch, I swear, over the next little while, he's going to go back down in the polls because he had a little bit of a bump because of this whole, incident, whatever.
And the terrorists,
yeah. Bullshit. I don't even like to use those words in relation to it because it wasn't either of those things. It wasn't terrorism or anything. It was just some fucking crackpots, right?
Yeah, they were radicalized by a terrorist group. They weren't necessarily terrorists.
I haven't seen any real evidence of that yet, though.
There is some evidence.
They said that they have a video or something, but we haven't seen
both submitted videos.
But they haven't released those videos.
One was drug addicted, all right? That was clear, all right? He, based on the reports that were out there, he was trying to get off the crack. He wanted to go.
From what I read, I thought they were like totally both nuts.
The other guy was just nuts.
Right.
All right. The second guy, the shooter in Parliament,
very competent
I actually,
terrorist, I guess.
I'm probably gonna get a lot of slack for this, okay? But I actually feel bad for the guy because there were a lot of signs that he was trying to get help. There were cries for help there, and nobody helped him. And that's the result, you know. If you want to prevent these situations from happening, I mean, you gotta pay attention to people. If there are cries for help out there, if you know somebody who's drug addicted and wants the help and wants to stop drugs, get them the help.
There was like signs of these guys being crazy beforehand, as usual.
But cocaine is a horrible drug, right? There's something called cocaine psychosis, and what happened in Parliament was due to cocaine psychosis and not
one guy was
terrorism.
all hyped up.
That's what that was, you know. The other guy was just crazy, the one that just ran over.
Well, isn't it odd that they were having a drill the same day that mimicked those exact same things? What do you think about that?
I don't think they had a drill.
They did have a drill. That's all for real. That was reported by the CBC. Adrian Arsenault reported it.
That same day they had a drill?
Same day and the days leading up to that day. And just like 9/11 and 7/7 and all these other things, they had drills that mimicked the attacks exactly happening those days, strangely. And weirdly, just released a couple days ago, was some information that the conservative government had a press release prepared that said there were 5 other people involved in that attack. And it was all prepared, and the press release was all finished and all written and everything, and then it was just never released for some reason.
Oh, no, I think I know what you're talking about. And there was a release that was being sent out to like emergency service workers and parliamentarians. And there was a point where the poor parliamentarians that were locked up in the building, they were locked up till late that night. They got word there were 5 perpetrators, you know, and they were scared.
Weird.
There was a lot of misinformation out there. And that's the thing. Like, we do have to be careful about the misinformation out there. We don't want to unnecessarily scare the hell out of people, because that's not cool either, right? Like, the truth is out there.
The X-Files?
Yeah,
the truth. I don't know. I find it strange that there's these weird drills all the time. That
I find
get
that
it.
incredibly strange.
Drills are important, though, because we want our security workers.
The coincidentiality of it is very, very questionable, okay?
Yeah.
True. But, you know, I do hear, like, the 9/11 conspiracy theorists, being of a Coptic Christian descent from Egypt, okay?
Yeah.
My family has experienced discrimination and terrorism firsthand. All right? I'm not kidding you. Like, these guys, you got to understand where the ideology comes from. It came from an Egyptian guy named Mohammed al-Banna. All right? You can Google him,
really
and there will be... all right? They got this ideological belief that we're all infidels and anything Western is bad, and we need to die because we're a bunch of infidel sinners. That's the long story short of it, right? And they do discriminate and terrorize.
Really, this whole new version of terrorism
it's not new, though.
That supposedly started with, well, Al-Qaeda and all that.
No, it started with the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, actually.
Yeah, I know that. But the Mujahideen, which was funded by the United States government in order to fight Russia in the Cold War, they were given millions of dollars to build those tunnels in Afghanistan and to do all this stuff, and they gave Osama bin Laden all this money. Bin Laden was a CIA agent for 25 years and and they gave him all this stuff and all this stuff. And then all of a sudden, everybody just believes that he's just working by himself and not working with the American government still. As if, like, I just don't believe
Well,
that
you
that's
won't
true.
believe it, but I do, and I'll tell you why, all right? I'll tell you why. First of all, you got to understand that the Muslim Brotherhood, all right, which started everything, the Al-Qaeda is an offshoot of them, all right?
Yeah.
They...
Al-Qaeda, that's what we call them.
All right. They were actually, back during World War II, they were a secret army of the Third Reich. All right. Hitler hired them to go out and discriminate and kill Jews.
Who is this?
This is the Muslim Brotherhood under Muhammad al-Banna. All right. Years later, the Americans needed help against the Russians because the Russians were thinking of and then eventually invaded Afghanistan.
Yes.
All right. The only people that knew about the Al-Qaeda and the Muslim Brotherhood secrets were the British. Yeah. All right. The British military intelligence guys knew that these guys were part of the secret army, like an army of the Third Reich, a secret army of the Third Reich. Knew this.
You know what?
But you know what? They told the Americans and said, America, we know who will help you fight the Russians in Afghanistan. Didn't give any background about who these guys were at all. And then the Americans went and hired them ignorantly. Now, you can't blame the Americans, for being the way they are.
We can blame the Americans.
They shoot from the hip. They're cowboys.
Really, for lots of things.
They are a bunch of cowboys.
Let's steer this back.
The British military intelligence.
Yeah, we got to steer this back to something.
Sorry, let's get back to politics.
Though that is interesting, and we will continue that conversation
for
later.
sure.
It doesn't have much to do with pot.
No,
but yeah, it's true. I think.
Oh, this is a pot show.
This is a pot show.
What am I doing here?
No, we should be talking about pot.
I'm kidding.
Do you realize this?
Yes. But so last night we were talking about last night, and did we finish talking about last night? It was in the end a pretty awesome gathering. There was a lot of people that showed up for it. I was impressed by the turnout because there seems to be a lot of interest in what's going on with the party and stuff. So there you go. And what's the next event? What's the next event coming up, though?
Well, we don't have any events planned out, but what we're going to be doing is we're going to be, if you're interested in volunteering on the Jodie Emery campaign, again, contact me, Mark Elyas on Facebook. We'll get you there, but we're going to be getting our volunteers together on Tuesday to do a little bit of training, and guess what? Because it's a tight race and it's going to be tough, we're actually going to, instead of just street pitching people on the streets, we're going to put an army of volunteers. We have like a big chunk of them already that want to go out and knock on doors for us. And we're going to put the army out there every day until the cutoff date to get those people to sign up members right at their doors. Now, of course, most of them will say no, but if you go to one house and there's 5 people there that are aged 14 and up, all right, and one of them signs up, guess what? All 5 of them are going to sign up. So sorry, Edward Wong, we're going to beat you.
Get the families.
We know how to win this. We've got experience.
Don't be giving away any secrets.
The capacity. That's just one little secret. You know, we've got other stuff
Neil,
up our sleeve.
Was cannabis discussed last night?
It was discussed last night. Pot was talked about last night. Karen Corville actually had a question about pot and asked, and there was a really good answer. And yeah, it wasn't recorded. I did record Jodie's speech, and I'm going to put that up online over the weekend. But I didn't get the answer to the pot question, unfortunately.
I was so excited about the event that I forgot all the questions.
Questions were good.
They were good, though.
So, that was fun last night. And if you guys do want to volunteer for the Jodie campaign, definitely get a hold of. There's a lot of different ways. You can send an email to. We don't have an actual volunteer email set up for the campaign yet.
You know what? We're going to set one up soon. It should be volunteers@jodieemery.ca. That'll probably be.
In the meantime.
In the meantime, send me a personal message on Facebook.
Yeah.
MARK. Last name is Elyas.
Elyas, Mark Elyas.
Mark Elyas.
And you can also send me an email at Jeremiah@Cannabis Culture if you can't get a hold of us in any other way. That's a way to always get a hold of me. Johnny B, what are you doing? Are you out of here? Are you out of here? No, I'm just smoking hash over here. Oh, I see. Okay. You were just waving. I wasn't sure what you're doing. Yeah. Just
So
checking in.
last night was nice because you know what? These three women support each other. All right? These three women want each other to succeed in their nominations and win in the election because these three women want to go to Parliament together with the other four women, Hetty Joyce, Jodie Wilson-Raybould, and Pam Goldsmith-Jones, okay?
Yeah.
They want to be part of that crew. 7 super strong women with diverse backgrounds, but you have to listen to them, you know?
Yeah.
And they want to be part of that team.
Well, and there's a lot of other candidates I think that are pretty decent in the Liberal Party too that we should probably... I wonder about their views on marijuana specifically. We know that 70% of the party supported the...
80%.
80%, so big chunk, over 70%.
I know that those two women, Mary and Wendy, voted for the policy.
Is that the really smelly stuff?
Yes, because I
this is
lobbied
nice
them
stuff.
to, and they
Well, I was
said,
gonna
sure,
really roll a
easy
joint, but I kinda
decision.
wanna hit the ball.
That's a no-brainer. They're like, these marijuana laws, you know, put black guys like you in jail and native people in jail. It's a racist policy.
Yeah.
Everybody talks about all the other adverse effects of prohibition, but as a colored person, I'm going to just say it straight up. The only reason the law is in place is to lock people like me up, okay?
Yeah.
You go to Vancouver, ask anybody who's been arrested for pot possession. I bet you, all right, they're not white. Okay.
Well, there are a few, but most in the United States especially. David just wrote an article that looked at a lot of the whole history of this exact subject we're talking about.
I got busted for possession.
Yeah, he's white.
Yeah,
that's
but
true.
did you get convicted? Did you get, like, locked up?
He did.
How long ago? Was it in the last... No, I'm
In
talking
Edmonton.
about here in Vancouver.
Vancouver, it's really hard to get busted for possession if you're white.
If you're white, yeah. If you're
Yeah.
native, I know a native kid, 20 years old. All right, check out what happened. He went to go smoke a joint at the park with his girlfriend. He gets to the park. He sees his brother getting beat up by cops. He's like, hey, officers, why are you beating up my brother? They jump him, beat him up, knocked out his teeth, and then guess what? Guess what he got charged with? Possession of marijuana. Okay? He had a joint. He had a half a gram of weed, and he ended up getting beat up by the cops, getting his teeth knocked out, and they justified it by charging him for possession of a half gram of marijuana. Native kid. This didn't happen too long ago. It happened last year. So I'm sorry. This policy that Harper wants to, like, he's building private prisons to keep his rich, fat white guys richer and fatter, to lock up native people and black people in Canada for profit.
Well,
so, like, honestly, fuck Stephen Harper. Excuse my language.
Yeah.
But you know what? Like, you want to put people like me in jail, Steve? Well, you know, people like me will fight back.
Anybody who's non-violent and doesn't deserve to go to jail shouldn't go to jail,
Exactly.
no matter what their race, color, or creed.
Hopefully, Trudeau will have a very inclusive model of legalization that protects all the growers and all the dealers, no matter how few dollars they happen to have.
David likes the inclusive model, and he's encouraging
Absolutely.
Justin Trudeau to include
You
the
know,
inclusive model.
read our policy paper. It's in there. You know what? People can...
Publicly endorse that policy paper? Has he done it anywhere?
Does he need to? He doesn't need to.
Well,
he's already endorsed it. I'll tell you
I
how
think
he's
he does. I
endorsed
think he
it.
does.
When he crossed the border into BC and saw one of those sensible BC signs and said, hey, I'm not in favor of decriminalization. I'm in favor of legalization. How does it mean anything? It means one thing.
You could have a Washington State version of legalization that busts people for 5 nanograms driving around and only makes millionaires able to only the people who are truly hooked up to be able to get a license to grow or deal. You could have a very exclusive model of legalization. And given the fact that his father had been promising us decrim,
you need a microphone if you're going to talk.
Listen, Justin Trudeau is not a dictator. He's not a dictator like Thomas Mulcair or Stephen Harper in their own respective parties. You know what?
explicitly endorsed that plan so we would know
Let me tell you
David,
something.
you should-
No. The Liberal
you should yell that over
Party.
the phone to Justin.
The Liberal Party endorses that plan, and through that,
he should endorse it explicitly, so there's no confusion as to what kind of legalization we're going to get. Because legalization could mean anything.
Now that you have the mic, you don't need to yell.
It could mean legalization for the rich, or it could mean legalization for all. And we've been fighting for legalization for all for 40 years, and that's the kind we want. It's a very inclusive white paper that the Liberal Party came up with. I think it was the BC Liberal Party came up with.
No, it's the Liberal Party of Canada in BC.
In BC.
Not the BC Liberal.
Okay,
we're different.
So it's a federal Liberals who happen to be in BC.
Yes.
Okay, so
it's
he
the
should
BC
explicitly
Liberals.
somehow explicitly endorse that plan so we know that it's the... And then I can more easily do my job as a pot activist to convince people that Trudeau is going to protect all the growers, all the dealers, and all the users.
Listen, this is how the law... See, the things that you're asking for cross several jurisdictions, okay? The only thing that the Liberal, like any federal government can do is decide to legalize it, so take it out of the criminal code, okay? The other thing they can do is set regulations on like how old you have to be to smoke it recreationally and stuff like that. Another thing they can do is tax it. Yeah. All right? When it comes to other regulations on who can grow, where they get their licenses from, those are provincial and local jurisdictions. So when a Justin Trudeau government, in fact, does legalize and regulate and tax cannabis, for the other regulations, you need to lobby the other governments, the provincial governments and the local governments in your cities. Because you know what? Some local governments might turn around and say there's a complete ban on marijuana growth in our municipality. They can do that. All they have to do is pass an ordinance in their town hall.
That's true. However, there's no good reason why you can't endorse the federal Liberal plan of legalization.
That is the plan. That is the plan.
No,
the plan
he hasn't formally.
You're missing.
He's endorsed legalization. He hasn't formally endorsed the Liberal plan for legalization. There's a difference between the two things, because he could introduce a totally different plan.
I just explained to you the Liberal plan.
Yeah.
The Liberal plan is within the federal government's jurisdiction to legalize, set minimal regulations.
I don't think you understand, but I'll try you one more time. Unless he explicitly endorses that plan, he could introduce a different kind of legalization.
Well,
one that only benefits the rich.
How else can he? He said he supports legalizing, taxing, and regulating cannabis. Listen, there will probably when they're in Canada. When it does get legalized, guess what? There will be probably 20, 30, maybe even 40 different forms of legalization, depending on what province, what city or town you live in. All right? Those regulations that you're talking about fall out of the federal jurisdiction. The federal jurisdiction is to legalize, tax, regulate it, as in who cannot and who can smoke it, right? Putting age limits.
But they're not powerful enough to make it inclusive for the poor.
The only age limit that they can set is 18, but guess what? Some of the provinces are going to turn around and say 19. In Canada, all right, under federal law, anybody can drink at 18, but under different...
It's more like coffee.
Well...
You're missing the point.
You're missing the point.
Well, David, it's possible.
You are.
Whatever it wants. Don't pretend it's so powerful that it can set an age limit of 18. But
listen, there's a constitution that doesn't make them the only government. They're not the most powerful government, like
I'm not sure,
everybody thinks.
David, I'm not sure.
There is a constitution. There's a relationship.
How says we should not exclude poor growers and dealers from this form of legalization.
How do they?
Says that that'll have a lot of pull with whoever's setting the regulations.
Why poor growers?
Point taken.
Poor.
Pardon?
He should use the language poor growers and dealers?
Okay, maybe not that language, because it scares people to talk about the rights of the poor to be included in this economy. But he should put it in that kind of diplomatic language that politicians do and just say it's an inclusive model of legalization, right? No dealer left behind.
Listen, the only language he's been using, is he wants to keep the money out of the gangsters' hands, and he wants to keep pot out of children's hands.
Yeah, well,
All right, at least recreationally. He's for children using marijuana for medicinal purposes.
If they allow everybody to grow,
for it, okay? But
if they allow everybody to grow at least 6 plants in your house, and you're allowed to trade up to 2 ounces with each other and sell 2 ounces or do whatever you want with 2 ounces, David, do you think that's fair?
I think the thing
outside of the regulated market.
The things that are going to be important to do is have equal rights with the coffee bean growers and dealers in terms of licensing and zoning, so that there's no caps, there's no limits on the amount of
Where's your microphone?
That can be opened up. So yeah, equal rights with the coffee bean dealers on zoning, and no caps on the no limit on the number of dispensaries or pot cafes or whatever that can open up. And I really think if Justin Trudeau is listening, he should read my article on cannabis and young people, because I don't know, I'd say about 8 out of 10 people who are in this room right now started smoking pot in their teens. And we don't want to punish a bunch of teens for doing what we all did, what, many people in politics have done too. We should look at the facts, and the facts are no increase in the amount of people suffering from mental illness or schizophrenia, no decrease in the IQ levels of people, and yet teen pot use has been it went from like 1% to 50% in the last 60 years. So you'd see an uptick if pot actually harmed teens. So Justin Trudeau should come up with better science to justify his prohibition on teen use, or he should allow some manner of safe access for teens to get access to cannabis, even if it's through parental permission, if he doesn't support teen autonomy. At the very least, he can protect them from the black market too. So we're going to be here as pot activists to make sure that to pressure Trudeau to come out with an inclusive model before he gets elected so that we can enthusiastically endorse him, and then pressure to make sure that that model is inclusive after he gets elected, because, we're not free till everyone's free. That's what I want to say about that.
There you go. David Malma-Levine, well said.
It's keep on,
There, yeah, thanks, David. His unique opinion. Well, and it's true. I actually agree with David. I think that we do need an inclusive model. We don't want to have just like Stephen Harper's form of medical marijuana, where we have a bunch of really shitty producers, and you have to have $1 million+ to be able to qualify just to get in with all these security, blah 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 blah.
Oh no, it's going to be a free
garden.
You don't need a wall with cement and
if it was growing everywhere, there'd be no need for that.
Around it.
If there was if it was superfluous, if it was absolutely in every community garden and in everybody's house, there would be absolutely no need to guard it, because it would be everywhere. Thank you.
Exactly. Yeah, and it really would be as cheap as lettuce, essentially, if at some point, or at least where in places where they don't have extreme taxes, like anywhere else other than British Columbia. They have cheap wine, for instance. You can get a bottle of wine in the United States.
$8.
Oh yeah, for next to nothing. Or in Europe, it's even cheaper.
Yeah.
It's like unbelievably cheap.
In India, it's everywhere.
Yeah. And so, cannabis itself doesn't really cost much to produce. It's artificially inflated, the market, because we have a black market, and it's illegal, so it's hot commodity, and there's a risk involved.
As for regulations, what David was saying about coffee,
Neil
but
Magnuson.
the people drinking coffee, they get headaches if they stop drinking coffee. You don't get a headache if you don't smoke a joint. So regulations, my ass. We don't need much for this thing.
Everything's a headache if I don't smoke a joint, Neil. That was Neil.
Yeah, well,
Our camera's
getting back,
choppy here.
the policy is to legalize and tax and regulate cannabis. The federal government, it's not their place to put maximum, restrictive regulations, but once it's legalized in Canada, there's going to be, you have to look out for Alberta. Alberta could still ban marijuana in their province and fine people who possess it, right? That's just the reality of the way. The federal government can't tell them to do that or not to do that. They can't do either, because the Constitution doesn't allow for that. Okay, as much as you're shaking your head, no. The Constitution is the Constitution.
I like smaller governments making decisions for themselves. I don't necessarily have a problem with provinces deciding for themselves on these things. If they don't cross lines. Yeah, I'm not really sure the federal government should be used in certain ways, because then when they use it against us, then they'd be doing all kinds of shit like this. So
I think we're back. Let me just check something here. Johnny B, are you out of here? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, I don't know what happened there, but Skype opened up or something. All right, Johnny B, we'll see you later. And hello, Pot TV, we're back. Hi, guys. Yes, I was just making sure all was well with the microphones. And yeah, so this is Neil Magnuson sitting next to me here. Hi, Neil.
Hey there, Jeremiah.
How are you?
I'm good.
Would you like a bong rip?
Probably.
Probably you would.
It is Pot TV. No, it's, on those other topics there, I want a federal government that's going to oversee the actual making sure that nobody actually harms anybody.
Uh-huh. Well, here. Which one was this? It doesn't say yet. Take that with you.
Like rules
that one's
and
a really,
regulations.
that's the super, that's this one.
Super prawn?
No, that's this one. Take that. Put that in the bag.
Bruce Banner. 3-time Chem Dog.
Yeah.
Plus Fire OG.
Yeah.
Respect the weed.
Like it fucks you up.
Yeah, man, respect
Make sure to remember that name before you go to bed. Repeat it 3 times fast.
You want one of these?
Or maybe in that bong? Yeah. Or how about in the Redbeard?
Yeah, give me the Redbeard. I love Redbeard.
So, what do you say this was an entertaining episode?
We're still on.
We're on right now.
We're live, buddy.
Yeah.
Did they just see me take
Yeah. You busted yourself. Right. You busted yourself.
My mother is...
Yes.
This is Lovecraft.
Hilarious.
By Redbeard.
Damn it all, anyway, it gets me mad about these things, that any level of government anywhere thinks that there can be rules and regulations of any sort, policies, laws, whatever, that would actually interfere and harm with a free citizen unless you're interfering with somebody else. That's what laws should be about, is making sure you don't harm somebody else. And if policies and regulations designed by local governments, provincial governments, if they're harming people, they're no good. They're not valid.
I agree.
They should be,
that's working against society instead of for it.
And if they don't get struck at the municipal level because the municipal people think that they have the power to make whatever policies they want, like you can't hold hands and kiss in public, as the one councillor was trying to do there in Burnaby. And
she's a crackpot.
Like yeah, but if a crackpot gets in and thinks that they can actually make these policies and they start writing this shit down, well, then there should be another level of government above them to say, no,
I think that would be unconstitutional.
Well, that's what I mean, right?
Yeah.
But even before it gets to court on an unconstitutional basis, I mean, there should be some level of government above that level of government.
Well, but then who makes that?
Says, no, you can't do that.
Well, who makes that level of government then?
I think we need to reset.
What if there's an idiot government in that level of government?
Then eventually it comes down to the federal government. That you should have a final level of government that you can go to and say, well, look, this is not reasonable and it's harming me. And if that's the case, then it should have to stop. Individual by individual. Because every individual is where the rights exist. They don't exist for groups unless other than children having special protection. But each of us individuals is a sovereign being that doesn't have, that shouldn't have anybody else bothering us in any harmful way unless we're doing something to harm somebody else.
Right.
And if in
but
a free country,
it gets a little stickier, Neil, when we're trying to actually do the governing of things, right? Because you got to have somebody in government, and you got to have somebody deciding who's in government. So you have the people, they decide who's in government, and then those people govern things. So if there's a higher government that governs things, that government has to be decided by the people or by some other thing. So it's kind of the same deal, right? You just got to make sure you put the right people in charge, because we have a democracy. And unfortunately, if you have idiots in the population, then you have idiots in government. And that's undoubted.
And that's where I'm saying a reset of our democracy.
We just have to work harder in places where idiots like that get elected to get them unelected.
But a little bit of a
somebody else
reset
elected
would allow for some recognition that sometimes you get idiots in government.
What would?
Sometimes government policy is harmful, and it shouldn't be that hard to recognize that and correct it.
Recall
And if-
campaigns, you mean?
No, I mean, an ombudsman is a good idea. I think what the MPA is suggesting here in Vancouver is a good idea, to have an ombudsman office that you can go to.
Well, yeah, that's a good idea.
And the ombudsman office should have probably governance of some sort over them by people that are privy to what the Constitution would say about such things. You know, it's not that hard a thing.
Yeah, well, an
Principles
ombudsman
of
would be-
justice and freedom and rights.
Well, there should be
shouldn't be
avenues
that
for
hard.
people who have problems with the way things are being governed to take that up. That's for sure.
That's for sure.
But I mean, if somebody platforms on making kissing illegal and then gets elected by a vast majority of the people or whatever, or even a slim majority of the people, I mean, yeah, that's a...
Well,
it
there
seems
should be some
to
overriding
me that's
document in
unconstitutional.
municipalities
So that would
says-
go to court and it would get thrown out as completely
Yeah.
ludicrous and ridiculous.
And there should be like a list of things that you get elected
Or
in,
we
and
have
you
a
say, well, here's
charter-
what I
charter
wanna
of
do, and
rights
you
and
go,
freedoms,
no,
I'm
that's
sure.
that's against the list, right?
Yeah.
The list says, no, you can't do that.
Yeah,
So
I think that
something
one
simple,
would...
right?
that's not even...
But
it'd
right
be-
now it's gotten so complicated. There's just laws on top of laws on top of laws, and these people are all so insulated by all of these laws that the recourse for a citizen is difficult, and it should be easy.
Well, that's true.
In today's world, it should be easy, because right and wrong's not all that hard. I mean, of course, our fight is the
And-
drug war,
and
where
actually-
it's obvious that the right and wrong is upside
It's
down.
funny, this is a good transition to the interview that I did with Jacob Sullum from Forbes magazine about the Washington D.C. fiasco, because it's a similar, there's like political weirdness down there right now because they're arguing over semantics.
And money.
Well, they're arguing over how this bill, it's a funding bill. And so essentially here's what's happened is a Republican who wrote the bill thought he wrote the bill in one way, but really he didn't. And so he thought that this bill that he was writing was going to limit Initiative 71 from being enacted. But because Initiative 71 is a ballot initiative, when it got voted in, it's being enacted. According to the House rules or whatever, that's the enactment. And so he wrote the bill incorrectly. Doesn't actually stop any funding for Initiative 71, but it starts any new funding for any new initiatives or any new legislation and new other stuff. So apparently that's kind of where it stands right now. But the weirdness comes in that the Republicans are standing by their argument and the Democrats are standing by their interpretation of it, which it seems to be the correct one if you really look at it, and lawyers who are looking at it are saying that. So now there's this fight over this language, and the conservatives, because they're in charge of Congress, they could just do whatever they want and just go through with it, apparently. But so we're going to talk a little bit more about the details of the whole thing with Jacob.
Our system is very flawed in those respects as well.
But so
I'm more into a down-to-earth, basic right and wrong for individuals, and how these things affect individuals. Because if something is actually harming an individual in some, demonstrative and obvious way, then that should be able to be addressed more simply than it is, I think, in our society here. Because we're still all blinded by the idea that governments are the authorities and they get to make whatever laws they want. And we're living like sort of in a dictatorship, but it's a democracy with public servants. And that's not what it's supposed to be about at all. It's supposed to be completely different than that. So that, and like I say, our fight is the drug war. That's the most obvious one that's
Bless you.
that we're dealing with for sure, right? Bless you, by the way.
Oh, I'm allergic to Neil's political talk here.
Yeah, maybe. But it's pot talk.
Yeah.
Because,
yes.
The biggest glaring and obvious example of the right and wrong that I'm talking about is the fact they think that they can tell a citizen that you can't have this plant here. And now we've decided, okay, you can have the plant, but now they're going to tell you can only get it there, so who can only grow it, and blah, 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 blah. This is a plant.
Since they own the police and judges and everything, they can, though.
Well, they think they can, but they can't because it's wrong, right? It's always been wrong.
But they have.
They have. They still are.
Yeah.
We're still upset about it. Should have ended, yesterday. I mean, even if this was a dangerous plant, even if it was the most dangerous plant, you don't become a criminal because you decide to grow one in your garden.
Yes. That's very true.
Bingo.
All right, we were transitioning.
And this is the least dangerous plant.
It is true. But Neil, I know.
And public servants have no business telling you 6 plants. What the fuck, 6 plants? You're going to have some government person come into your home and make sure you only got 6 plants? If you like blueberries, knock yourself out. If your family loves blueberries, grow it for everybody if nobody else in your family
I don't necessarily like a limit on plants.
Of course not. Do you think this is nature. What are we talking about? Freedom.
But should everybody be able to produce a lot of vegetables in their home?
Yes.
I mean, but for selling?
Well, now you're in a different realm. As soon as you put up a shingle and say, come and buy my vegetables, general public, maybe there's an issue there.
Well, what are you going to do with...
Maybe there's an issue there. I doubt it.
At some point, you're going to have too many vegetables for you to eat, though.
That's your business.
Well, I guess, yeah.
What about farmers markets?
I don't actually know the answers. I'm just being
What about farmers
markets?
Here. They don't have any kind of
too many vegetables in your house or garden is not
I like
the
farmers market concept.
It's not a crime. It's not government business.
Right.
If you're now
only if you're causing
if you're
some
disposing of your vegetables because you're growing too many watermelons and you're not using them, and the government has to come and deal with all the trash, then you should get a surcharge for using more of the public waste.
But what about the government likes to put a tax on everything, though.
Fuck them.
Well, that's right, but that's not really how they work, though.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
We need a reset of this bullshit.
So,
if they're going to put a tax
on
there should be a damn good reason for it. If they're going to tax marijuana, they got to tell me it needs to be a cost.
You don't believe in taxes? I thought you were progressive.
For lots of things. For having marijuana or selling marijuana, I do not believe in taxes.
You don't believe in taxes for selling marijuana?
Why would you pay a tax for selling marijuana?
Well, why?
If the government is sending an inspector
should you pay a tax for selling things at Walmart?
If the government has to inspect those things, and I think at Walmart they get CSA standard approval to be sold in those places,
well, wait a second.
There should be a charge for having those things monitored like that. And if there's issues with the safety of some of their products, then there should be charges. If the government has to pay money, you should have to pay money. You should have to pay a tax if you're involved in something that's costing money. Marijuana saves money. Marijuana saves money for everybody. Marijuana is a violence suppressor. It's an anxiety relief formula. It's a supplement to alcohol, which people start using marijuana after work instead of alcohol.
Should people be able to create...
We'd have less wives beaten. We'd have more people showing up on time.
Should they tax liquor at all?
If it's causing problems in our society, that's costing us money, then we should pay for it.
Well, yeah.
That's what taxes are about.
I agree with that.
There's no real reason to tax marijuana.
So you agree only with taxing things that are harmful then, is what you're saying?
Costly. If it's costing something, then you have to pay for it. If they're sending out inspectors to make sure the marijuana's not got fertilizers and pesticides and laced with this and that, if that has to be happening because that's a problem in our society,
I don't think that has to happen.
Then we'd have to pay for that. I don't think it's a problem either.
But
if it was, then we'd have to pay for that. And
but see, Neil, the thing that happens usually, and this is what will likely happen with marijuana, seems like that at least in our society, you can go to any corner store and get tomatoes and any kind of vegetables, fruits and vegetables that you want. So most people aren't interested in growing things themselves at all.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Why shouldn't this be in the same, right in the batch, right beside the lettuce and the tomatoes and the blueberries and the strawberries?
Right. But usually the people that want to grow a lot will be the people that are like trying to grow a heck of a lot.
Why not?
So should they be taxed? Like the people that grow to sell their stuff in the store.
If they're growing a heck of a lot of something that seems to be of value and people like it and it seems to be selling, then why the hell would you put a restriction on that? Those are good people to have. They're supplying what the public wants. If there's not enough tomatoes in society and somebody decides to put their whole property to growing tomatoes for us, I mean, why would you restrict that person? You would encourage that person. You'd say, thank you very much. There wasn't enough tomatoes, and now you're growing tomatoes for us.
Vapor Central says all taxation is theft.
It is, unless there's a reason for it.
Yeah.
If there's government bureaucracy that needs to be there because there's a harm being done in public somewhere,
your caveat,
then we have to pay for that. If there's harms being caused in our society, if there's policing costs involved, if there's health costs involved and other costs involved, then we have to pay for that. But there's no health costs involved with marijuana. People that use marijuana use less pharmaceuticals, they use less alcohol, they use less tobacco. All of those things have all those inherent costs that are now not being cost to our society.
There would be some costs associated for society with the growing of marijuana, though.
For society?
Well, sure. I mean,
Sure.
it takes energy.
We're going to pay for it.
It takes
So if we want it, we gotta pay
electricity
it.
for one thing, which takes its toll on society in the way that it's.
People get charged for electricity. If they set up a big barn full of lights there, then that's going to cost them X amount of dollars, and they got to factor that into it. It's commerce.
Yeah.
It's just commerce.
I think
Ryan?
we can all agree that like the basic taxes that we pay, like GST, PSD, or whatever business taxes we pay, they go towards the essential services of roads, police, fire departments, etc. So I think we can all agree that
Talk to the mic.
it would be fine to have like basic taxes on the selling of pot, like GST, PC. But
Hold it. What? Policing costs, fire costs, why costs for growing pot?
just the general costs of society. Everything does have a like cost. Like every business does use the roads.
I see what you mean. You should pay for your hydro.
Yeah.
If you're growing weed, you should
That's
pay
what I'm
for your
getting at,
hydro.
Neil.
But on
The
top of
trucks,
on top of that,
You shouldn't get free fertilizer.
The stuff that carries the marijuana from one place to another.
You're buying
that
gas,
has
I guess.
A cost, yeah. Well, gas,
Just
but
like any other freight between,
pollution comes out of the cars. And stuff.
Like any other
the
product that you're
infrastructure
getting
of
to market.
society, basically. Use of the infrastructure of society.
Like any other
and
product you're getting to
emergency
market,
services,
you would
yeah.
pay all of those same types of taxes along those. I agree with
Well,
that.
and
then
those
on
are
top-
those
but
are all the
then once
regular
you go
taxes
past
of
that,
society.
You have to have some kind of argument for why you have additional taxes on it.
Exactly.
So if it's something that is medicinal and something that helps people, there shouldn't be any reason to tax it. Just like it should be just like vegetables,
yeah, man.
anything like that.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
Hey, we found a herb that happens to help people, and we don't have to buy pharmaceuticals anymore. Yay!
And I'd say
Hell
I'd say we
yeah.
could use a lot less taxes on most things.
They should supplement the damn
like especially things like alcohol and those other things that are so outrageously taxed, like out of control in this, at least in this province. I'm not sure if everybody else has to deal with that, but yeah, and things like.
I don't know what the math is. Somebody
And
should
I don't
do the
believe
math.
in-
I'm counting on them to
I
do
don't
the
believe in
math. that
carbon taxes
alcohol costs us this much money.
Yeah.
That you got people in the hospital
It does,
every
yeah, it does
Friday,
cost
Saturday night. You go to
society.
any emergency ward any Friday and Saturday night. There's a whole bunch of people coming in there in ambulances and crippling in there, and it's because of alcohol, right? I've seen it
No,
time
but
and time
I
again.
still don't think we should tax it like
So it's costing
that.
us to have that happen.
No.
If those people aren't paying for their specific ambulance ride and the
No,
doctor and
you
stuff,
can't.
then that costs us.
I don't believe in that type of socialism. I just don't like
putting
that.
tax on that for that reason.
No, I don't like that. Well, who decides?
somebody has to pay for that, though.
Who decides that? Who gets to be the judge of what hurts people and what doesn't, and then decides to
we can
tax
put a
people
cost
based
to
on
the
that?
harm
Well,
of
I've seen it
alcohol.
happen
That's a little
here,
bit too
where there's
precise
a guy
for
sitting
me.
at the center there, and there's people on either side of him, and they sit around and they talk about it, and they go, "Here's what's going on." They have
don't know.
presentations made to them, and they go, "We got all these people showing up in hospital, and several
Why
wives
should
have
I be
complained."
punished for other people using alcohol irresponsibly?
No, that's the tax on alcohol. So when you go and
Yeah,
buy
but
okay,
how-
you're right too, because
No.
you're not going to use alcohol in that way.
It's like cigarettes.
So I hear you there.
Bingo.
Cigarettes. You pay a high tax on cigarettes because there's such a high cost to our healthcare system. It's
Right.
the same. It's
Well,
the same with
cigarettes-
alcohol.
He's saying
where you
unless
have
it's
a health-
killing
Cigarettes-
you, why should you have to pay? That's what he's
Cigarettes
saying.
you can't use responsibly. Alcohol you can.
Oh man, you'd have people that smoke cigarettes to tell you it really helps with their anxiety to tell you they can use it responsibly, and they do.
Well, you
One
may-
a day they'll tell you.
No, you can't use
I've
corporate
heard that, and
cigarettes
it's probably true.
responsibly. You can use real tobacco responsibly, but you can't use the corporate tobacco responsibly because it's so toxic. It's like saying you could use rat poison responsibly if
I
you were
agree
swallowing
that
it.
the scales are way up.
Yeah, it's not. It's not quite the same thing. You can consume a lot of alcohol before it's very toxic to you. Much more than say the percentages of even in one cigarette will be very toxic to you. But real tobacco, you go down to the actual tobacco store, even the one that's just down the block, and you get that real Virginia tobacco, the organic stuff that's not treated. It's not. Tobacco that's in cigarettes isn't real tobacco, guys. Anybody who's out there who's smoking, if you think that's real tobacco, no, it's not. It's paper that has been
shredded.
They shred up the paper and they spray it with. First, they spray it with the tobacco juices that they extract from the plant.
Some of the actual
tobacco
plant
juice.
in
It's
there.
just it's juice though,
Yeah.
and then they spray paper with it, and then they shred paper, and that's what you
and
have.
they add all these other chemicals to make it more addictive.
Oh yeah,
to
100
better
and,
deliver it to your brain.
101 chemicals, and they're all
It's a big scam, folks. They just want to get you addicted to keep
toxic.
you giving them their money.
Jeremiah, the tax on alcohol. You say you don't want to pay for somebody else's, say, transgressions
Yes.
if you aren't a heavy drinker.
Yeah.
But if
Or a violent drinker.
Okay, yes.
I think lots of people use alcohol responsibly all the time.
Yeah,
in fact, the vast majority of people who use alcohol use it responsibly.
But if you don't pay for it through alcohol, we're all paying for it anyways. You're still going to pay for it. It's just how you get taxed for it. Because the cost of those the cost is still there. Yeah. It's just how you spread the cost.
How is the cost still there?
Because because of
hospital.
Right, well, of course, but then... Yeah, but why blame the people that are drinking alcohol for every person that shows up at a hospital?
You're right.
Doesn't make sense.
How do you specify these people when they buy alcohol, they're going to cost us money, and these people aren't? I don't know how you specify that.
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous.
Well, you have to add up the cost to society.
General of a thing. It's like
by doing studies.
It's like saying, are you going to have so we're going to start to have like, I just it's a slippery slope with that kind of stuff.
All right, hey, so you're with me on the marijuana then too, right?
Hamburger tax because hamburgers are bad for you.
Exactly.
Or because some doctor says that hamburgers are bad for you.
A tax on weed because they used to have reefer madness and now they're hesitant to admit that really they just lied to us for years and years and marijuana is good, not bad.
Saying you don't want to pay for it doesn't make it go away. The problem is still there. We're all paying for it anyways.
But how does us paying more taxes for alcohol based on at the point of purchase have anything to do with the people coming to the hospital, and how does it not make them go away? People are still going to go to the hospital no matter what. So if people go to the hospital, then alcohol should be fairly taxed as equally as any other product.
If the tax isn't on alcohol, then it'll just be pushed off to, say, municipal taxes or
you're advocating
some other kind
an unfair tax on alcohol that's different than all the others, a disproportionate tax on top of alcohol more than anything else. So I'm arguing for it to be equal.
Right. But somebody's got to pay for the billboards that say, hey, stop drinking and being stupid.
It does cause a disproportionate...
No, but those billboards are fucking retarded.
...amount to our society.
Sorry.
Well, if they had good ones...
No, they don't have good ones.
But they need good ones, right? You've got to have a billboard that tries
the cost of carbon.
At least.
Have you looked at the science behind those billboards? The science behind the billboard says that when they put those up, more people are more likely to use the products that are on the billboards.
So better billboards.
No, well, they have. That's why the conservatives put up these big ones that have like ecstasy pills all over them. And it doesn't matter. Any of these anti-drug campaigns or anti-alcohol campaigns are actually just alcohol campaigns. Yeah, those promote the usage of alcohol, and all the science says that. I mean, that's what I'm saying. These people who are the judges of what is good and bad for society in that socialistic way, there's a lot of stupid shit. And it's not scientific, and it makes its way through.
We have to hope that it's more stupid shit from the conservatives than from the liberals, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, we know that alcohol causes problems in society, but that's kind of like blaming. It's just as bad as blaming any other substance for it.
We also know that weed would offset some of those damages, though, right?
Well, yeah.
So we do know that.
But that's an offside of my point. My point is that you can't blame the substance for what people do when they use it.
So because there's just a lot of money being generated by cannabis because so many people like it and it's easy to grow, then we just should pay some taxes anyway. And I'm not disagreeing. I think that's maybe a good idea. We just should pay some taxes anyway because it's costly to run a society with.
If it was an absolute, like say, okay, you're using your car and you're on the road. Well, then that's 1 and 1. That means that's perfect. You know you're going to have to use the road to use your car. So that's fair to have a tax that's on cars and for things like that are related to roads. But if it's something that is like in question, like, well, did every single person that drink alcohol abuse it and then have to go to the hospital? No. Well, then it's not fair to out proportionally tax it.
You're right.
Like, so that's the way that I see it, and that goes for everything. And it's those weird sort of socialistic ideas though that get carried away, I think, where it's like they're judging, well, that could hurt people, so if it could, then we have to tax it.
Well, no, it's not that we could, because you agreed that we know that alcohol does have the cost.
But it doesn't have
and we do know that cannabis has the opposite effect.
That's taking away part of our liberty to use.
Would you tax more on alcohol and less on cannabis, or does it matter? You just have a straight across the board, there's money being exchanged.
I would tax equally on both.
Okay, there you go. I mean, you're consistent. I appreciate that.
So are you for raising taxes on everything else in
society? I'm not for raising taxes on anything. I'm for eliminating many taxes we have and also eliminating all of the bullshit that we spend tax money on.
A for-profit system then?
For-profit? What do you mean? No.
What do we do with the costs?
No, I would say that we should get rid of a lot of different taxes. We should get rid of a tax on people's income, first of all. I don't believe in an income tax, but I believe in a tax on trade, on products being traded and on other things that take away from society and have externalities. I understand the concept of externalities, and I believe the companies should be taxed on that. But
I like our healthcare system.
It's been a real
So
slice, but they're going to tow my car away for you.
yeah, and I'm
got
gonna.
my car back today. Finally.
It's getting late already. It's been a
Thank you, Jeremiah.
hilarious tangent of a show.
Good to see you.
We talked about everything other than pot. Yeah. Bye, Neil. Yeah, we did talk some pot.
there are a lot of costs
But-
in society, and we just have to decide on
Yeah.
how to pay them, how to split it up.
But yeah, exactly. I don't think that you should unfairly tax something like alcohol based on the concept that it might hurt people or people who use it. Some people who use it abuse it. That doesn't seem fair to me. Because some people who use cannabis abuse it, and
very
some people
large
who
financial
use
impact on our society from alcohol and from the what results
yeah.
through healthcare, through health problems, through
Well, so punish
violence, through
So
the
then
courts.
tax the companies who produce it, but don't tax the individuals who consume it, because they're
Those
not.
companies just pass it on to those
No,
costs on
I don't
to
even believe
consumers.
either. I don't even believe in either. I don't think we can target them in that way. I just don't. It's starting to. That's like rating things in a way that I think gets dangerous or something. But I don't know. That's just my opinion. But anyways, yeah.
The
I
Sensible
appreciate
BC
your
party.
comments on
It
What's
was
that?
last night at Dana Larson's.
Oh yeah.
I went to that.
How did it go?
It was really fun.
Oh yeah. And it was just his like local shindig. It was just his like.
His house.
Yeah, at his house. Yeah. No, I know. I was at the Liberal thing last night. I forgot about Dana's thing, though. I'm not even sure if he invited me. Oh. I think he did. I'm sure
Probably
he did.
did.
Yeah.
Smoked a lot of his pot. It was really nice.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and so that just reminded me. We have news about our big 420 event in Vancouver. The 420 event organizers, some of us, myself included, went and had a meeting with the city about the proposed location and other details of the event. And this is what was happening. We had thought that the art gallery was going to be under construction on April 20th, and so we thought we would have to move to a new location. So we decided to start scouting out locations, and we found one that we thought we liked really well, and that was Jackpool Plaza down on the waterfront. So the board of 420 organizers that gets together and decides on these things came to the conclusion that if the art gallery is going to be covered in dirt and have a fence around it, then we would have to move the event, and so we would find a new location. But if it was still open at the art gallery and they didn't have the thing going on, then we would still use the art gallery because it was the natural place to do it, and because everybody's just going to show up and do it there anyways. Whether we want to do it or not, people are just going to show up at the art gallery and start selling weed and doing everything and getting up on the stairs and doing DJ music or whatever, right? If we don't do something there, somebody will. And so we decided that when the city told us that the construction wasn't going to be done, we said we're going to be back at the art gallery. So since there's no construction, we're back at the art gallery again, which kind of makes it harder for us to organize in certain ways, but in a way it's the traditional spot to do it. So 420 at the art gallery. Which one?
It's like one of those little pen ones.
Oh, a vapor pen?
Yeah, I thought I passed it around when
Is it black?
the black one. Yeah.
I saw you with it before,
Yeah,
but I don't see it around, Chris.
maybe when I passed it around.
Check the couch
I'm not
out.
sure. Yeah, maybe it's tucked away in the couch or something.
But it's a good solution for till we can get a new location
Yeah.
the following year.
Well, yeah, exactly. And the problem with, so we did ask about Jackpool Plaza because I actually really would have liked to have switched the location anyways to Jackpool Plaza, but the city told us. And now we were meeting with a city official, or two city officials, an ambulance official, and two police officers, and they told us that Jackpool Plaza is run by the federal government and that it's very hard for them to work with the feds to organize because it has a weight restriction limit and a person restriction limit on the area that we'd want to actually have all of our activists show up to and all of our party on. So, and the big stage show and everything is right there. They say that you can only cram 5,000 people into there, and that becomes illegal after that point according to the restrictions and all these things. And this is something that the federal government has. And so when they have events there, they have to watch the number of people that come and go very closely, and otherwise they're liable for,
We can't push the event out onto the street there, or
Well, the problem is we'd have to do a head count of everybody who came through the door, making it nearly impossible. We just can't do that kind of thing. And so it doesn't really work, you know, and they told us simply no about using it, actually. That's what they said to us. They said, you can't use that. It's too bad. It's too hard to use. Like when I called, they said even people that try and take their wedding photos on it get kicked off and stuff because they're really harsh about it. It's just, they're brutal about it. It's like run by a private security firm that like regulates or polices the area and stuff and kicks people off. So it's not, I guess, an option really. And so it'll make it very hard for us. We'd have to go against the city to use that area. So unfortunately, because it was a perfect area, but. And our argument is that the art gallery is also probably has a weight restriction on it, and we're probably breaking that too. But I doubt we have over 5,000 people on that. Who knows? I don't know. But anyways, I'm going to go ahead and get this video loaded up here because I interviewed Jacob from Forbes magazine earlier about this Washington D.C. thing, and we've been going off onto tangents all day. All day tangents. So let's get this video up and going here. All right, guys. So I guess maybe, how long is this video? This video is about 16 minutes long. So I guess we should just end the show and say goodbye at this point because 16 minutes later I'm going to be eating gummy bears and chilling out, smoking more weed. But yeah, we'll see you guys again on Pod TV next Friday, and before that, you can watch Redbeard's show. I saw Redbeard in the chat earlier.
Yeah, hi Redbeard.
Redbeard was in the chat, and you can watch his show tomorrow on Pod TV at 4 p.m. if you want to see some awesome glass blowing happening. I think he's doing a show tomorrow. 28 Dabs later says, I want gummy bears. We sell gummy bears at the Vapor Lounge here at 307 West Hastings, so come down and get some delicious gummy bears.
That marble that Redbeard made last week was amazing. Dichroic Galaxy. That was
totally
special.
Awesome. Yeah, he does some amazing stuff on the air.
I posted a bunch of screenshots of that, and he really appreciated it. So
tune in.
Came out really nice.
Check it out.
Bye,
yeah,
Pod
thanks,
TV.
guys.
Bye.
Sorry for the rambly show today. We went off on every issue possible, but yeah, we're gonna play the video for you now. This is me earlier today talking to Jacob Sullum from Forbes magazine about the Washington thing. He's written an article that you can find on the front page of Cannabis Culture right now. There's a link to it. I give the name of the article in the interview, and so check that out as well. And stay tuned for more on this issue. We'll keep you guys updated on what exactly is happening in Washington because Obama supported it as well. So
I just wanted to say the show has been so chill that Buds has been in the same spot from start to finish. Well,
wow.
Got up, kind of moved around a
today.
little bit, repositioned, but at exactly the same chair. The kitty, Bud's the kitty, exactly the same spot.
Totally knocked the fuck out.
And I must say also Tippy has been pretty sweet today too.
Where is Tippy?
The kitties have been great today.
Where's Tippy?
Tippy's over there.
Oh, the cats are funny. Come down to 307 West Hastings Lounge and check them out. And get some gummy bears. All right, guys. Peace. Check out the interview. Jeremiah here with Jacob Sullum, who is a syndicated columnist and a longtime contributor to Reason and Forbes magazine, who has written extensively on the drug war. Jacob, good to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Now, I wanted to speak with you about what's happening in Washington, D.C. The legalization drive there, Initiative 71, of course, passed with a landslide victory. It was 70+%. The ballot initiative would have legalized marijuana in the District of Columbia if, indeed, it gets through the hurdles it has to pass, the Congress and the other things that are going on right now. And that's where it gets a little complicated because there's this new rider in a funding bill aimed at stopping it, or we thought it was aimed at stopping it. Now we're not so sure. Jacob, I'm hoping you can walk us through some of this stuff.
I will try. So the intent of the guy who added this rider, whose name is Andy Harris, he's a Republican congressman from Maryland, his intent was to stop Initiative 71 from taking effect.
Right.
But the language that he used may not accomplish that, because the language that he used refers to using money, whether federal funds or local funds, to enact a measure that legalizes or decriminalizes a Schedule I drug. argument that when it was approved by voters, 70% of them on election day, it was enacted. There is a congressional review process for any law that is passed by the district, where Congress has 30 legislative days once it's submitted to decide whether they want to override it. That rarely happens. But the effect of that is that the new law takes effect. It's not that the law is enacted. And in fact, if you look at the language in the District of Columbia Home Rule Act, which is the law that governs this whole process, it says that if Congress does in fact pass a resolution, it's a joint resolution of disapproval, and it's signed by the president within the 30 legislative days, then that has the effect of repealing the law. Well, you can't repeal a law unless it's already been enacted. So clearly, under the Home Rule Act, the idea is that either the D.C. Council or the voters through a referendum is passing a law that is then enacted, but then may subsequently be repealed if Congress chooses to do that. So since this rider only talks about preventing D.C. from enacting a law, it looks like this has already been enacted, so it's too late for that. And that is the argument that Eleanor Holmes Norton, the D.C.'s delegate in Congress, has made. It is the same reasoning has been endorsed by several Democratic leaders in the House who were involved in the negotiations over this bill, so they ought to know something about it. On the other hand, the Republicans who backed this rider are claiming that no, this would stop the initiative from taking effect. I think they're probably wrong, the Republicans, that is. I haven't seen a persuasive that a D.C. law is not enacted until it passes the congressional review process. The effect of the review process is either to let it take effect, which happens automatically, or if Congress actually decides to act within the specified time period, then it repeals the law. So that means the law has already been enacted.
Right, so it's really about this word enacting or enacted. Now, it's a strange thing that it's kind of a semantical argument here, I guess, really between the Republicans and the Democrats. But yeah, it makes sense, though, that it would be, of course, enacted because the next stage, so say if this rider hadn't have been put in there, the next stage would be that they actually have to look at it to either let it pass or repeal it. And so without it being enacted, it just can't, there's no way to repeal something that hasn't been enacted.
Right, and if Congress does nothing, it takes effect. That's it. It does not require any additional legislation from Congress or from the D.C. Council. So the effect of this initiative, which is to get rid of penalties applying to certain specified marijuana-related activities, right? So it's possession up to 2 ounces in public, it's growing up to 6 plants at home, it's sharing on a non-commercial basis with other people. It repeals the penalties for all those things, and it doesn't. Once it takes effect, that's it. You don't need any additional legislation. It's what they call self-executing, right? So given that, I think that the Democrats have the better of this argument. And it's actually interesting if you look at why it was that Andy Harris changed his rider, because he tried this once before last summer when he was trying to reverse the decriminalization of marijuana in D.C. D.C. changed possession of up to an ounce from a misdemeanor to a civil offense where you could get a $25 fine. Right. He didn't like that, so he inserted language that was quite similar to this language, except that it said to enact or carry out. And his idea was that would have the effect of reversing this decriminalization measure. I'm not sure it would have, actually, but that was his idea. And he says the reason he took out carry out from the new version is that he didn't want to imply that this would reverse the decriminalization measure. So in other words, he's already thrown in the towel on that. He's not trying to reverse that anymore. Right. But by making that crucial change in the language, he may have crippled the impact of the whole thing.
Right. Well, now, so this bill or the rider then, so say the Democrats are right on this one, what does the rider actually do then?
Well, it would stop, one thing that I think is clear is it would stop the district from passing new legislation to regulate marijuana businesses. The initiative does not do that. The initiative, because of the restrictions that D.C. puts on what can be accomplished by initiative, you can only do certain kinds of legal changes, in particular ones that involve allocating new money, which would be necessary for regulation, you can't do by initiative. Because of those restrictions, the initiative itself only legalizes the things I mentioned possession, home cultivation, sharing, right, for adults 21 or older. If you want to actually have a source of marijuana other than home cultivation, then you have to do something like Colorado has done or Washington has done, which is create a system where you have legal marijuana businesses that are growing or selling it. And there actually is a bill that the D.C. Council has been considering already that would do that. It would assign the responsibilities to their local liquor control board. And it would be a process that would take some time. It would be probably a couple of years before the store started opening because, they have to write the regulations and they have about 6 months to do that and they have to accept applications from people and then, of course, you need time to actually grow and establish these businesses and so forth. So it would take a while, but that would basically be stopped by this rider. At least through the end of the fiscal year, which is through next September, D.C. would not be allowed to proceed with that legislation because that does involve enacting a new thing, right? It's enacting regulation, enacting a law that tells the Liquor Control Board to write these regulations and start accepting license applications. So it would stop that, which would mean that assuming the initiative takes effect, basically you would have to be, if you're assuming you want to stay within the law, and of course a lot of people are just going to buy from their usual sources, but assuming they want to be completely legal about it, people will either be growing their own or they'll be getting it from friends or acquaintances, which is legal under Initiative 71.
Right, and the way it does this is by denying it funding, essentially, and that's the way the language is in the rider.
Right.
It says it's not. They're not allowed.
Basically, it's all the when they do riders with the appropriations bills. It's phrased in terms of you may not spend money, and in this case, it's both local and federal money on whatever the thing is they don't want to happen. And, any function of the government pretty much involves some kind of expenditure of money. Certainly creating this system, this new regulatory system, licensing and regulation system would involve, spending money. Unless Congress gets rid of that rider, which is possible, at the, for the next fiscal year, they're not going to be able to have commercial cultivation and distribution.
Right. So now, of course, though, if the Republicans are correct about this one, which we at this point it looks like they got it wrong on this one, right? How do we find out whether that's true or not? Actually,
that is an excellent question. The local attorney, what they call Attorney General for D.C., that office is looking at this issue, so they're going to presumably come up with a position. The city attorney's office will probably come up with a position. If Congress disagrees, then there could be litigation over it, right? So if the congressional leaders are Republicans, and if they decide no, we think this means you cannot, the initiative can't take effect, then you would have a legal dispute that may end up in court. Assuming the district takes the opposite view, which I assume they're going to.
Right. Wow. So it's quite a complicated situation there. Now, the other element here is the White House has indicated that Obama will support this funding bill, no matter what it is got in it.
Right.
Yesterday, when it was looking like it was actually going to kill the initiative, there was some criticism of Obama about the whole thing. But the White House actually, didn't they criticize the Republicans for adding that language in there?
They did, and previously, when Andy Harris tried to pass that earlier rider that I mentioned, where he was trying to reverse decriminalization, the Obama administration also criticized him and said, this is not appropriate, you shouldn't be trying to meddle with the district's policy choices. So it was pretty clear that the president was opposed to this sort of thing, although, the actual measure involved is slightly different, but the general principle is that they should be able to decide, have their own policies. And I think, that's a reason, one of the reasons to think that it would be quite difficult to actually get a resolution of district passed, because that requires not only getting both houses of Congress to approve it, but the president has to sign it, and that's a standalone piece of legislation. It's not like this bill where you've got a million things in it, many of which the Democrats want and many of which Obama wants. You would have a bill that would do only one thing, which would be to overturn marijuana legalization in D.C. And in that case, even if the Republicans wanted to take this on in January, and it's not clear that they do, that this would be a high priority for them, and even if they could get both houses of Congress to approve it, which is also not clear because there are not just a lot of Democrats, but a fair number of Republicans who don't think the federal government should be meddling in this. Even if they could get it passed, it still would have to be signed by Obama, and he's given every indication that he would veto it.
Right. Now, there's As a little aside to this whole thing, I mean, I guess we just have to kind of wait for the Attorney General there to sort of figure this out and see what happens. I mean, if it did, you said that it could go to court. If it was something like that, I mean, would we be looking at a long procedure for this, or was this something that would be dealt with fairly quickly?
I honestly don't know. I mean, I think if the Republicans decide that, you know, they're determined to override this initiative, and the district challenges that they might, you know, the Republicans might cave after if there's an initial ruling in favor of the district. They might decide to go along with that, or they might not. So it's hard to say. It depends on how determined the Republicans are to, you know, block Initiative 71 from taking effect. And honestly, I don't think they really want to do that. I don't think they want to spend all the time or effort doing that. And this was part of Harris's calculation in inserting the rider that we did at the very end of the session when everybody's desperate to get this measure passed. There was no real, you know, debate about it. It was just sort of these backdoor or, you know, backroom negotiations with the Democrats. It would be, you know, I think that part of his calculation was that the Republican leadership isn't really interested in taking this up in January as one of their first acts, you know, in the new Congress when they're going to control, even though they would be controlling both houses, in charge of the Senate as well as the House. I think that, you know, that was part of what he was thinking, is that the Republican leaders really aren't all that gung-ho about overriding this.
Right, right, and that was, you called your article, "Rider Aimed at Stopping Marijuana Legalization in Washington, D.C. Reflects Prohibitionist Weakness," and I guess that's what you're referring to there. And
another thing I guess I should point out, which I mentioned in the article, is that this very same bill, the one that has the rider that is aimed at overturning Initiative 71, includes another rider, and this one actually got a vote from the full House. That was introduced by Dana Rohrabacher, who's another Republican, but this one is coming at this issue from completely the opposite direction, and it's telling the federal government not to interfere with marijuana policy choices made by D.C., specifically says D.C. and the states, with reference to medical marijuana. So, and that measure got a majority in the House, and it attracted, I think, it was about almost 50 Republicans who voted for that. You know, and so what I read that to mean is that these are, you know, 50 or so Republicans who are saying, you know, whatever opinion about, you know, whether marijuana is a good medicine or whether the states should be doing this, the federal government should leave it to states and D.C. in that case, because they specifically mentioned D.C. So that, to me, you know, is an indicator that within the Republican Party, there are people who support local control, who think that, you know, the decision should be made at the lowest possible level. And then, even though, strictly speaking, the Constitution doesn't require it in the case of D.C., because D.C. is sort of this congressional protectorate, right? It's you know, complete control over it. Even though the Constitution doesn't require it, I think that there are Republicans who can see the logic of, you know, if we let states decide these issues for themselves, why shouldn't D.C. decide, you know, these issues as well?
Mm-hmm. Now, this is the one that restricts the Department of Justice and the Drug Enforcement Administration from using taxpayer funds to interfere in basically medical marijuana programs in the 20 states that have them, right? 20-plus states.
Yeah, so, and it, you know, like I said, it mentioned not only but D.C. specifically. So there clearly is some sentiment among Republicans in support of the view that D.C. as well as the states should be able to make its own decisions with regard to marijuana policy, which I find encouraging. And you know, you have new additional Republicans coming into the House, a fair number of whom may be inclined in that direction because they are federalists and they, you know, conservatives who believe the federal government should not be interfering willy-nilly everywhere. Mm-hmm. And you know, the Republicans will be in control of the Senate as well. But there are probably at least a few Republican senators already have indicated publicly that they're not inclined to interfere in this sort of thing. Rand Paul probably has made the clearest statement saying D.C. should be free to do as it chooses and the federal government should not interfere, specifically with reference to marijuana legalization. But also Pat Roberts from Kansas and Ron Johnson have said that this is an issue that should be left to the states, so that leaves open the question of whether it applies to D.C. as well, but they've indicated that whatever their views about marijuana, they don't think the federal government should be trying to impose prohibition in jurisdictions that have rejected it.
Right, exactly. Well, Jacob, I really appreciate you coming on the show today, helping us figure out the details of the situation. I'd definitely love to talk to you again when we figure out more about the whole thing. And, of course, people can read your article, Rider Aimed at Stopping Marijuana Legalization in Washington, D.C. Reflects Prohibitionist Weakness, at Forbes magazine. There's a link to it on the front of cannabisculture.com right now. Jacob, thanks a lot for coming on.
Sure, thank you.